Chapter 1159. Practically every peak power had their own trump card. However, Chu Xiu had forgotten that his Kunlun devil cult also had a trump card. It was Wei Shuya's rootless sacred flame. As long as he was near the rootless sacred flame, Wei Shuya would be able to utilize its power. It was even stronger than when Rama utilized the power of the Subhuti precious tree. The reason for that was because the Subhuti precious tree did not belong to Rama. Rama could only forcibly ignite his blood essence and primordial spirit in exchange for great power, in order to forcibly control the Subhuti precious tree. However, Wei Shuya was different. The demon exalted heaven weeping's supreme divine pellet contained a trace of the rootless sacred flame's source energy. After Wei Shuya refined it, it was equivalent to him being in existence of the same origin as the rootless sacred flame. Naturally, he would be able to utilize the rootless sacred flame's power without any restrictions. Of course, the prerequisite was that he must be near the rootless sacred flame and be able to withstand the pressure from the rootless sacred flame's power. Chu Xiu narrowed his eyes and said, "Old Wei, if you are able to control the rootless sacred flame, would you be able to instantly unleash the power of a martial immortal?" Wei Shuya said, "That's not an issue. Do not underestimate the power of the rootless sacred flame. It is a natural divine item born from the dragon vein. Even martial immortals cannot destroy it. They can only seal it." After saying those words, Wei Shuya suddenly realized something. He looked at Chu Xiu and said, "You couldn't possibly be thinking of having me use the rootless sacred flame to pretend to be a martial immortal, right? That's not a bad idea. Unfortunately, it won't work. I must be near the rootless sacred flame in order to control it. However, the rootless sacred flame cannot even leave Kunlun. How could it possibly bring the Daluotian people here?" Chu Xiu said with a deep voice, "Where there's a will, there's a will. How would you know if you haven't tried? In the lower realms, the power of our holy church has more or less reached the peak. As long as it's not all the righteous sects joining hands, or the heavenly gates taking action, we will be able to withstand them. However, in the Daluotian Empire, it was not that simple. Without a single martial immortal, a sect was akin to an ant that could be destroyed with a wave of the hand. To put it bluntly, my identity as Guzun's successor is merely a tiger's skin. While it might be able to intimidate others, it will not be able to intimidate actual martial immortal level experts. For this reason, if they find out my master is a martial celestial who's extremely protective and doesn't care much about the rules, I'm sure we'll have a good time in the future." There were some things that Chu Xiu dared to think about. Although Wei Shuya felt that Chu Xiu's idea was unrealistic, he had to try it to know. Therefore, Chu Xiu and Wei Shuya went straight to the south. At present, there was Shang Tianliang and a group of experts under Chu Xiu's command guarding the county governor's mansion. Basically, there was no need to worry about people making trouble. Chu Xiu didn't even need to instruct them to pay attention. Everything would be distributed just like in the lower realms. In the south, at the passage between the two realms, Master Yuanji was arranging a formation with a pleased look. Previously, he thought that Chu Xiu gave him a difficult problem. Who knew it was easier than he imagined? Although there were two different worlds, the distance could be said to be very short because the two worlds were overlapped. It should be said that there was no distance at all. The main problem was that there was a certain degree of spatial interference because they were two different spaces after all. There might be a high probability of loss when transmitting messages normally. However, this was not a problem. The formation inheritance left by Demon Venerable Tian Weeping could be said to be very complete. There were also a lot of space involved. He was almost done with the arrangement, and it was only a matter of time before he completed it. Therefore, when he saw Chu Xiu coming, Master Yuanji went forward to take credit with a happy face. "Sir, give me less than 10 days, and I will be able to complete this formation." Chu Xiu nodded and encouraged him. Not bad at all." However, before Master Yuanji could finish being happy, Chu Xiu said, "By the way, I have one more thing to ask you. If I want to connect the rootless sacred flame to the Daluotian, is it possible?" Master Yuanji was dumbfounded when he heard that. How could this lord be so fickle-minded? Who can withstand it? Just as he was about to say that it was impossible, he saw Chu Xiu's gaze. He had to swallow his words and said, "In theory, the formation can directly affect the operation of the heaven and earth law. The rootless sacred flame is also a kind of manifestation of the heaven and earth law. Naturally, it is also possible. However, your subordinate's strength is meager, so I really can't do it. Even if the former Skycry demon venerable were here, he might not be able to do it." Chu Xiu rubbed his chin and said, "What's the difficulty?" Master Yuanji said directly, "The difficulty is actually how to draw the rootless sacred flame out of Kunlun Mountain. Actually, crossing these two worlds is not considered difficult. This is the place where the two worlds overlap. I have already removed the influence of space. As long as I can draw the rootless sacred flame over, I can use the same method to let the rootless sacred flame cross the two worlds." However, the crux of the problem was that the rootless sacred flame couldn't even travel from the peak of Kunlun Mountain to the foot of Kunlun Mountain, let alone allow the rootless sacred flame to cross the two worlds. Formations like the 6 paths of Buddha rebirth formation conceal the rootless sacred flame, but it can't affect the direction of the rootless sacred flame. Chu Xiu said in a low voice, "You can't do it, but can other people in the pugilistic world do it? Do you know anyone in the pugilistic world who can complete such a formation? Don't forget that the sacred sect has already dominated the pugilistic world. If you want people, I can get them for you. If you want materials, I can still find them for you." In fact, in the beginning, Master Yuanji's attainments in Formation Dao could only be considered not bad. What he was really good at was Divination Dao. However, Chu Xiu had imparted Demon Venerable Heaven Cry's Formation Dao to him, that had allowed Master Yuanji to improve by leaps and bounds in Formation Dao. However, he was not considered to be the best. Master Yuanji thought for a while and said, "It can be said that there is no one in the pugilistic world who can complete such a formation alone. However, it is possible to team up. I know of 2 people who stand at the pinnacle of the Formation Dao lineage, and are most proficient in this type of Formation Dao. One of them is the Purple Star Hall Master of the True Martial Sect, Sage Fa Yuanzhu Qingshan. He is the best in Formation Dao in the True Martial Sect. In fact, even Lu Chonglu has to consult him about Formation Dao. Currently, 90% of the Formation Dao in the True Martial Sect came from him. Even the Formation Dao that was passed down in the True Martial Sect had been repaired and strengthened by him. This person is best at borrowing the power of Dao sect formation. He borrows the power of heaven and earth to evolve the power of the formation. Sometimes, a formation doesn't even need any external force to drive it. It can be operated completely by the power of heaven and earth or special terrain. The second person is the Great Master of Formation Dao in the Imperial Worship Hall of Eastern Qi, Array Ghostly King Chowing. This person's Formation Dao is inclined to be unconventional. He has many kinds of strange and wonderful ideas. However, his methods are a little evil. He has used the method of sacrificing human lives to set up formations many times. Therefore, he is known as the Array Ghostly King. However, his attainments in the Dao of formations are far inferior to mine. Back then, I even studied quite a few of his formations, and they were extremely exquisite and marvelous. It was simply amazing. After Master Yuanji finished sighing, he looked at Chu Xiu carefully. He also knew that the 2 people he mentioned seemed to be in a difficult situation. The True Martial Sect naturally didn't need to be mentioned. People from the 3 major Dao sects were Dao sect's great enemies. How could they help him? As for Array Ghostly King Chowing, he was not a righteous person. He would come as long as he offered enough benefits. However, he was now the Imperial Worship Hall of Eastern Qi Imperial Court. Nearly half of the Formation Dao in the entire Eastern Qi Imperial Court came from him. It could be said that if Chowing was obtained by others, nearly half of the Eastern Qi Imperial Court's methods would be useless. If these methods of breaking the formation were to be leaked from Chao Ying's mouth, it would definitely be a disaster for the Eastern Qi Imperial Court. Therefore, in Master Yuanji's opinion, it would be extremely difficult for Chu Xiu to find any one of them. However, after listening to him, Chu Xiu directly waved his hand and said, "All right, leave this matter to me. Hurry up and complete the formation here, then prepare to connect to the rootless sacred flame." After speaking, Chu Xiu directly used the passage between the 2 worlds to return. Wei Shuya also followed him back just in case. After all, the forces in the lower realm were currently weak. Most of Chu Xiu's trusted subordinates were in the Daoyuotian Empire. As soon as they returned to the lower realm, Chu Wuji was guarding the door. Seeing Chu Xiu and Wei Shuya return, Chu Wuji said in surprise, "You're back so soon?" Chu Xiu squinted and said, "I came back to find two people." As he spoke, Chu Xiu told Chu Wuji about these matters. Chu Wuji's eyes lit up. "Interesting, interesting. I'll go with you. Chao Ying and I are friends. I can also speak to him." "Oh, Chao Ying is also a member of the Diabolism?" Chu Wuji shook his head and said, "No. Don't forget, the Wei Kingdom where I was previously was a vassal of Eastern Qi. Eastern Qi once helped the Wei Kingdom construct the formation. The person they sent was Chao Ying. He is a strange person with a strange temper. If you want to use him, you have to be careful. Just don't kill him in anger." Chu Xiu nodded and said, "Of course I know this. Do I look like the kind of person who would casually kill people?" Chu Wuji secretly curled his lips and did not comment. In the Zhenwu sect of Eastern Qi, incense was at its peak. It was even more prosperous than before. Chu Xiu had destroyed the Great Light Temple and Sabodhi Monastery. The Northern Yan sect was destroying Buddhism. It could be said that the power of Buddhism had been greatly reduced overnight. It even affected Eastern Qi. In the whole of Eastern Qi, countless monastic temples were closed. The monks had begun to return to secular life. The common people did not have temples to worship, so they went to worship Taoist temples. Anyway, to them, there was no difference between the Taoist ancestor and the Buddha ancestor, except that one had hair, and the other didn't. Anyway, they worshipped either one to pray for children, wealth and marriage. It was fine as long as it worked. If it didn't, they would find another one to worship. Chu Xiu arrived at the true martial arts sect. Looking at the flourishing appearance of the true martial arts sect, he clicked his tongue and sighed. "It's all thanks to me that the true martial arts sect can achieve what it is today. Do you think that the true martial arts sect owes me a favor?" Chapter 1160. In the True Martial Arts Church, Lu Chonglu and a group of martial artists from the True Martial Arts Church were cultivating with their eyes closed. It was said that the statue of the True Martial Arts Church had the Taoist connotation left behind by the True Martial Arts Church. Cultivating under the statue would increase the probability of obtaining the Taoist connotation. At that moment, Lu Chonglu suddenly opened his eyes and said, "Why do I feel a little uneasy?" The rest of the people present looked at Lu Chonglu in surprise. They did not know what he was thinking about. At that moment, the incense of the True Martial Arts Church was flourishing. The power of the Tao sect had finally overshadowed the Buddhism sect. What was the sect leader worried about? At that moment, a disciple of the True Martial Arts Church pushed the door open hurriedly. He had a panicked look on his face. He was trembling and could not utter a complete sentence. "Calm down. The sky is not falling. What are you panicking for?" Lu Chonglu let out a stern shout. His voice contained a calming force. Only then did that disciple finally stop panicking. "Chu Xiu is here." As soon as the 4 words were spoken, everyone in the True Martial Arts Church had a change of expression. They would rather the sky fall than hear those 4 words. Why did Chu Xiu come to the True Martial Arts Church after he had just destroyed the Great Light Temple and Sabodhi Zen Temple? Could it be that he wanted to destroy the True Martial Arts Church? Before they could react, Chu Xiu, who was following behind the disciple, had already pushed the door open and entered. Chu Xiu chuckled and said, "Fellow Taoists, please don't blame me for being rude. It's just that your disciple from the True Martial Arts sect is a little too rash. He had just reported his name, and he had already fled in panic. He didn't even inform us. Do I, Chu Xiu, look so hateful? Or do you think I will eat you? If it was a blessing, it was not a curse. If it was a curse, it could not be avoided." Lu Chonglu took a deep breath and said, "Our disciples are young and do not know the rules. Please forgive them, Cult Master Chu." Before Chu Xiu destroyed the Great Light Temple and the Sabodhi Monastery, even the orthodox martial arts world would not compare Chu Xiu to Dugu Weiwei. The cult leader of the devil cult would always be Dugu Weiwei. Chu Xiu was just the master of the Kunlun devil cult. But now everyone had no choice but to acknowledge Chu Xiu's current position. He was the leader of the Kunlun devil cult. Chu Xiu waved his hand and said, "It's just a small matter. I won't bicker with youngsters. Actually, I'm only here to find someone." As he spoke, Chu Xiu turned his gaze to the crowd and said, "May I ask, who is the master of Ziwei Hall, Fa Yuanjinren Zhuge Qingshan?" Among the Taoist priests, a tall and skinny old Taoist priest with a sage-like demeanor was stunned. His body subconsciously shrank back. It was not a good feeling to be targeted by a ferocious cult leader like Chu Xiu. Lu Chonglu quickly said, "May I ask, Cult Master Chu, how did junior brother Zhuge offend Cult Master Chu or the Kunlun devil cult? I'm sure there must be some misunderstanding here. From what I know, junior brother Zhuge has never stepped out of the real martial arts cult in recent years. He has been wholeheartedly studying formations in the cult." Chu Xiu said, "You don't have to be nervous, Master Lu. I've heard of Priest Zhuge's unparalleled skills in formations. So I want Priest Zhuge to help me set up a formation. This time, I'm not here to cause trouble. I'm here to invite someone." Hearing Chu Xiu's words, everyone was stunned. No one expected Chu Xiu to ask the real martial arts cult to help him set up a formation. Actually, this was not a difficult matter. It was normal for the big sects to borrow formation masters from each other. Within the Taoism, everyone knew that Zhuge Qingshan's mastery in formations was high. So, Chunyang Dao sect and the Celestial Master Abode had actually asked Zhuge Qingshan to help. They would just give him some compensation after the matter was over. However, now that Chu Xiu was here to invite him, the situation had changed. Who was Chu Xiu? He was the cult leader of the Kunlun devil cult. He had just destroyed the Sabodhi Monastery and the Great Light Temple. He was the kind of demon who could stop children from crying at night. At this time, if the real martial arts cult sent someone to work for Chu Xiu and set up a formation for the Kunlun devil cult, they would be criticized by the entire orthodox martial arts community. So at this moment, Lu Chonglu and the rest of the people from the real martial arts cult were silent. They did not know if they should reject or agree. Seeing Lu Chonglu and the rest, the smile on Chu Xiu's face gradually disappeared. He said, "Why? Are you unwilling, Master Lu? Or are you worried that I can't afford the compensation?" Lu Chonglu said helplessly, "That's not what I meant." "Then what do you mean, Master Lu?" Chu Xiu took a step forward and said coldly, "Sect Master Lu, I know what you're worried about. You're just afraid that by sending people to help me, you'll be criticized by the other righteous martial artists. Don't worry about that. If anyone dares to gossip about me, I'll send someone to kill them immediately." Lu Chonglu was instantly shocked. He quickly said, "No, absolutely not. Originally, the matter was not that serious. However, if Chu Xiu did that, the real martial arts cult would be in cahoots with the devil cult." Chu Xiu slowed down his voice and said, "Master Lu, to be honest, I'm not against the real martial arts cult this time. I'm really going to ask Priest Zhuge to help me." To put it bluntly, with the current strength of the Kunlun devil cult, it's only a matter of a word if we want to destroy the real martial arts cult. If people respect me, I'll respect them tenfold. This is the principle of how I, Chu Xiu, do things. Although the real martial arts cult has some conflicts with me, it's because of the relationship between the two camps. I don't really care about it. This time, let's follow the rules." After saying that, Chu Xiu took out a booklet and said, "This is an ancient Taoist scripture from the ancient times. It should have been lost in Jianghu. In exchange for Priest Zhuge's help, I've already respected the real martial arts cult. I'm not asking you to return it tenfold. According to the rules, just return it a foot. How you choose is entirely up to you, Master Lu." That booklet was indeed an ancient Taoist scripture. It was copied by Chu Xiu from the book collection in the Kangwu Prefecture's Royal Sky Pavilion. It was not a very precious thing. However, if it was in the mortal world, it would be a lost secret scripture. Lu Chonglu revealed a wry smile at the corner of his mouth. He stretched out his hand and took the booklet. He said to Chu Xiu, "Junior brother Zhuge rarely comes out of the real martial arts cult. Although he's not young, he doesn't know much about the ways of the world. If he offends official Chu, please forgive him." Chu Xiu revealed a smile at the corner of his mouth. Lu Chonglu had compromised in the end. He understood what Chu Xiu meant. If he didn't hand over the person, he would exterminate the sect. It was a blatant threat. If someone respected Chu Xiu, he would return it tenfold. Now that Chu Xiu had respected the real martial arts cult, if the real martial arts cult didn't return the tenfold to Chu Xiu, it would not end well for them. However, Zhuge Qingshan looked at Lu Chonglu with a dumbfounded expression. Did you just sell me out like that? Lu Chonglu patted Zhuge Qingshan's shoulder helplessly and secretly transmitted a message. Junior brother Zhuge, based on Chu Xiu's character, I'm afraid he would have taken action if he was planning something. The real martial arts cult isn't qualified to be Chu Xiu's enemy anymore. Since he came to talk about this matter, politely, he should really be asking you to study the formation. Don't overthink it. Zhuge Qingshan nodded helplessly. He also knew that with the current strength of the real martial arts cult, they really couldn't compete with Chu Xiu. They could only agree to whatever Chu Xiu said. After watching Chu Xiu leave with Zhuge Qingshan, Lu Chonglu let out a sigh. That sigh contained a great sense of defeat. For so many years, Lu Chonglu had been acting like a good person. In fact, he didn't really pursue or value power. It was only now that he knew how pathetic it was to not have power. Having power didn't mean that you could do whatever you wanted, but it gave you the right to say no. Chu Xiu didn't delay, and immediately brought Zhuge Qingshan to Eastern Qi. Currently, the Jianghu was in turmoil. The Northern Yan and Western Chu royal families had lost their right to speak in the whole world. Only Eastern Qi still had some power left to compete with the Jianghu. Moreover, over the years, the righteous and diabolical sects had been fighting non-stop. Except for the one time when the Eastern Qi royal family fought against the Northern Yan royal family, they didn't lose much. Therefore, they still had a lot of power left. Currently, Kunlun's Chu Xiu's name had already reached the stage where everyone knew of him. The moment Chu Xiu reported his name, the imperial palace's guards looked as though they had seen a ghost. However, Eastern Qi and Kunlun devil cult had never been related. Therefore, they were only surprised but not too surprised. After a while, they invited Chu Xiu into the main hall. In a short period of time, the palace of Eastern Qi seemed to be turned upside down. Experts from the Imperial Consecration Hall, Eastern Qi royal family, and White Tiger Hall and other Jianghu forces that had defected to Eastern Qi were all present. In just a short period of time, the whole palace of Eastern Qi seemed to have been turned upside down. Experts from the Imperial Consecration Hall, the Eastern Qi royal family, and the Jianghu forces like White Tiger Hall that had defected to Eastern Qi were all present. This was not the Daluotian kingdom. Not many sects could have 10 experts of true fire spiritual cultivation realm. After many years, the originally stout Lu Haochang was now skinny and old. It was obvious that he didn't have much longer to live. This man could be considered a talent. It was said that not long ago, he married several concubines into the palace. It was not easy for him to live until now with such extravagance. He almost made his son an old man. Facing Chu Xiu, Lu Haochang forced himself to be spirited. He smiled and said, I wonder why Cult Master Chu has come to Eastern Qi? Chu Xiu waved his hand. He didn't beat around the bush and said directly, I'm here to borrow someone from your majesty. The Array Phantom King, Chao Shen, from the Imperial Consecration Hall of Eastern Qi. I'd like to trouble your majesty to lend me him for a while. I'll pay you well. Hearing this, the smile on Lu Haochang's face froze. Chao Shen controlled almost half of Eastern Qi's arrays. If they fell into the hands of outsiders, there would be endless trouble. Therefore he coughed and said, Cult Master Chu, I'm sorry. Chao Shen has some matters to attend to recently, and can't leave. Why don't you bring me whatever array you want to make, and let Chao Shen do it? Chu Xiu couldn't be bothered to talk nonsense with Lu Haochang. He released his aura and said coldly, Your Majesty doesn't want to lend it to me? What if I insist on borrowing it? Chapter 1161. Chu Xiu was the only person in the entire Jianghu who could threaten the ruler of a country in front of everyone. All the martial artists who belonged to Eastern Qi in the hall had ugly expressions on their faces. How could they not be angry when the #1 dynasty in the Central Plains was threatened like this? Chu Xiu could not help but shake his head when he saw the attitude of the people from Eastern Qi. He had expected that if he went to the real martial arts sect, as long as he threatened them with a tough attitude, the real martial arts sect would most likely agree with him. This was because the martial arts sect had fought with him more than once or twice. They knew how terrifying he was, and they also knew Chu Xiu's character. However, Eastern Qi did not do so. Other than the time when they attacked the Northern Yan, Eastern Qi had never fought with Chu Xiu. This caused them to underestimate the degree of threat Chu Xiu posed. This was not a good thing. Lu Haochang coughed, and his eyes revealed a cold look. Is Cult Master Chu threatening me? No matter how stupid and useless Lu Haochang was, he was still the emperor of Eastern Qi, the ruler of the most powerful country in the world. How could he not be angry when he was threatened by someone from the Jianghu? He was not Meng Yunqing of West Chu, who did not dare to speak loudly in front of the martial arts sects of West Chu. Cult Master Chu, please watch your words. Our Qi is not a country from the Jianghu. Among the royal family of Eastern Qi, an old man held an ancient bronze sword with both hands. The sword exuded an extremely powerful aura, and it was incomparably steady and heavy. The world was like the earth, and a gentleman carried things with kindness. This was the divine weapon of Eastern Qi, the Sword of Earth. This sword was stronger than the 9 dragons seal of the Northern Yan. After all, the power of the dragon veins of Eastern Qi was incomparable to that of the Northern Yan. Although this old man was not at the mysterious opening realm, judging from his aura, he had already taken a step into the mysterious opening realm. With all the power of the royal family of Eastern Qi, it was not surprising that such a strong warrior could be cultivated. With the Sword of Earth in his hand, in the imperial city of Eastern Qi, even an ordinary warrior of the metaphysic state of heaven and earth could do nothing to him. Although Chu Xiu was not at the heaven and earth mystic realm, he was not ordinary either. With a long laugh, Chu Xiu said coolly, "Old mister, please watch your words. Is Eastern Qi looking down on a Jianghu man like me? 1,000 years ago, wasn't the royal family of Eastern Qi also born in the underworld?" As Chu Xiu's voice trailed off, a wisp of pure demonic energy burst out from his body. The surrounding spiritual energy of heaven and earth surged into his body like a swarm of bees, instantly forming a huge storm around him. The suction force was so strong that even the power of the formation in the palace of Eastern Qi was sucked into Chu Xiu's body. His body began to expand like a Buddha, and the terrifying aura made it hard for the people present to breathe. Their eyes were filled with horror, and they could not even say a word. The main hall of Eastern Qi was very tall and majestic, more than 100 feet tall, like a huge building. Chu Xiu's body expanded to the top of the hall, and then his aura dissipated in an instant. He stood on the same spot as if nothing had happened. Although the law embodiment of heaven and earth consumed a lot of energy, Chu Xiu did not use it right away. He only used it halfway and then gave up. He could still bear the consumption. But even though it was just the beginning, the power was enough to shock everyone present. Looking at the people present, Chu Xiu said plainly, "Everyone knows about my relationship with the Northern Yan. I know that your majesty is worried that after I take Chaoshan away, I will leak the formation of Eastern Qi to the Northern Yan. Your majesty need not worry about this. The mundane world is no longer what I pursue. I can't be bothered to interfere in the war between the 3 countries. So let me ask again. Will your majesty lend me the person or not?" Before Lu Haochang could speak, the elder holding the Sword of the Earth said directly, "From now on, the phantom ghostly king is no longer a guest of Qi. Cult Master Chu can use him whenever he wants." Lu Haochang looked at the elder in shock. He wanted to say something, but in the end he did not. This elder was the oldest and most powerful of the Dongqi royal family. Since he had already said so, it meant that, in his opinion, even if the entire power of Dongqi gathered together, they would not be able to stop Chu Xiu. Perhaps they could stop him, but they would have to pay a huge price. Face was small, but life and death were more important. Although Lu Haochang knew that he did not have much time left to live, he treasured the time he had left. So Lu Haochang thought for a moment, then said, "Bring Chaoshan here." After a while, an unkempt elder in a black robe was brought over. As he walked, he scolded, "Why did you call me here? I still have unfinished formations over there. Lu Haochang coughed and said, Chao Shen, this is the cult master Chu of the Kunlun devil cult. From now on, you are no longer a guest of Eastern Qi. Just follow cult master Chu. Chaoing glanced at Chu Xiao in astonishment. After all, even if he wholeheartedly devoted himself to array formations and didn't pay much attention to the matters of the pugilistic world, he still knew the name of Demon Lord Chu Xiao. But then he snorted coldly and said, I'm not going. I still have many formations that I haven't finished. Why would I go? The faces of Lu Haochang and the others changed. They didn't expect that Chao Heng wouldn't agree to it even though they had agreed to it. It would be terrible if Chu Xiao misunderstood and thought that they were the ones causing trouble in this matter. At this time, Chu Wuji said, Chao Shen, don't think about your formations. Come to the Holy Church. We can give you more formations for you to study. Have you heard of the name of the heaven-weeping demon lord? One of the 4 great demon lords of the Holy Church? The formation inheritance he left behind is in the Holy Church. If you work hard for the Holy Church, you can have a look at these things. Chao Shen had certainly heard of the heaven-weeping demon lord. It should be said that everyone who studied formations, whether they were from the righteous path or the demonic path, had heard of him. Chao Shen stopped talking and could not help but look at Chu Xiao and said, What he said, does it count? Chu Xiao nodded and said, Of course it counts. Do you think the Holy Church would lie to you? Hearing Chu Xiao's words, Chao Shen directly nodded and left behind Chu Xiao. When Chu Xiao and the others had left, everyone in the hall let out a long breath. Chu Xiao's existence was too much pressure for them. The old man from the imperial family of Eastern Qi said to Lu Haochang in a low voice, Your Majesty, I'm afraid the situation in Jianghu is going to change. From now on, Eastern Qi will withdraw all the people we have planted in Jianghu. Jianghu is Jianghu, and the court is the court. From now on, Eastern Qi will only care about the people of the world, not the Jianghu. Hearing the old man's words, Lu Haochang could not help but say, Is Chu Xiao really so terrifying? So terrifying that even the power of Eastern Qi cannot do anything to him? The old man nodded and said, He is more terrifying than your Majesty can imagine. But your Majesty doesn't need to worry. Just like what Chu Xiao said, at his realm, what he pursues is no longer the pitiful bit of authority in the secular world, but the true pinnacle of power. So as long as your Majesty does not provoke him, the Kunlun devil cult will naturally not do anything to Eastern Qi. 500 years ago, Dugu Weiwei's power was deeper than Chu Xiao's, but it was the whole Jianghu that suffered, not the world. At the top of Kunlun Mountain, next to the rootless sacred fire, Master Yuanji did not expect that Chu Xiao would really bring Chao Shen and Zhuge Qingshan so quickly. Chu Xiao said in a low voice, What I want to do is very simple. I want to find a way to connect this rootless sacred fire from the top of Kunlun Mountain to the south. As long as it is completed, there will be benefits for both of you. Zhuge Qingshan frowned. This was not an ordinary difficulty, but he did not doubt anything. After Chu Xiao occupied the south, he established many branches in the south. It seemed that he wanted to treat the south as an important stronghold. It was normal to increase some forces here. Chao Shen rubbed his hands excitedly. For him, this kind of challenging thing was exactly what he needed. Chu Xiao called Master Yuanji over and gave him a few words. Then he went straight back to the Daluotian for closed-door training. Before Master Yuanji came, he had already opened the communication channel between the two worlds. If anything happened in the mortal world, Chu Xiao could receive the news immediately. During this closed-door training, Chu Xiao also wanted to try whether he could break through the mysterious heaven and earth realm. After a series of fierce battles with the mysterious heaven and earth realm powerhouses, Chu Xiao's understanding of the entire realm could be said to be very familiar. He had even touched the bottleneck. He was only one step away from breaking through. In the closed-door training room of the Kangwu County Governor's Mansion, Chu Xiao used a total of 49 days for this closed-door training. The qi of heaven and earth in the entire closed-door training room was terrifyingly rich. It was like flowing water, turning into a liquid state. At this time, if someone stretched out their hand and stirred the qi of heaven and earth, they could even make it flow. Chu Xiao's mental energy had risen to the peak. In the next moment, a terrifying suction emerged from Chu Xiu's body. The qi of heaven and earth was absorbed into Chu Xiu's body, leaving behind a vacuum area. The vacuum area was constantly twisting. Chu Xiu even tried to control this area and change the rules in it. The aura of the space twisting became faster and faster. At the last moment, it seemed to be unable to withstand this powerful force and exploded. The power that Chu Xiu had previously absorbed into his body dispersed in all directions. Chu Xiu let out a long breath and opened his eyes. He succeeded, but he also failed. He said he succeeded because he now had the power of the mysterious heaven and earth realm, as well as the primordial spirit of the mysterious heaven and earth realm. With a wave of his hand, he could control the power in the world. This was already no different from an ordinary mysterious heaven and earth realm powerhouse. However, the area where Chu Xiu failed was that he did not successfully condense a domain. Chu Xiu knew where the problem was. It just so happened that it was in the area that he was most proficient in. His power system was too complicated. It was so complicated that he actually did not know what kind of domain to condense. This was very embarrassing. Therefore, he still remained at the realm of controlling the world. He did not completely control the world and change the world. Therefore, the current Chu Xiu could only be considered as half a step into the mysterious heaven and earth realm. Chapter 1162. Half-step elemental enlightenment of heaven and earth was still considered elemental enlightenment of heaven and earth. After Chu Xiu came out of seclusion, Shang Tianliang immediately felt that there was something wrong with Chu Xiu's aura. He looked at Chu Xiu in surprise and said, "You've broken through?" Although Chu Xiu's cultivation speed was known to everyone, Shang Tianliang still found it hard to accept that Chu Xiu had stepped into the profound understanding of heaven and earth realms so quickly. It was simply too much of a blow to him. Even in a place like the Dayu Ocean, the elemental enlightenment of heaven and earth would be considered a powerhouse and could rule over a region. In the lower worlds, they would be supreme existences of the martial arts circle. How old was Chu Xiu? It was indeed terrifying to be able to reach such a cultivation level. However, after Shang Tianliang exclaimed, he immediately came to a realization. Wait, something's not right. You haven't completely stepped into the elemental enlightenment of heaven and earth. What's going on with you? I feel that you can clearly break through. You can clearly take a step forward. Why are you still in the true fire spiritual cultivation realm? Don't be sarcastic. I was also planning to ask you about this from Elder Wei. In fact, in terms of combat power, Chu Xiu had completely surpassed Wei Shuya and Shang Tianliang. However, combat power was combat power, and understanding of martial arts was another. The two could not be talked about together. Chu Xiu's strength was completely tempered by continuous fighting and killing. Ordinary people needed to first accumulate strength when they broke through, then use a lot of time to understand the world, learn the realm, and so on. However, Chu Xiu was different. As a person who often challenged people of a higher level than him, he fought fiercely with experts of a higher level before he broke through. He understood the power of this realm in a life-and-death battle, like a robber, crazily plundering. Although this method allowed him to break through very quickly, in terms of understanding the realm, he was really not as good as Wei Shuya and Shang Tianliang, who had taken one step at a time. Of course, Chu Xiu also took one step at a time, but he did not walk up. He killed his way up. When Chu Xiu finished explaining his situation, Wei Shuya and Shang Tianliang shook their heads at the same time. This was the first time they had heard of such a situation. There was actually someone who couldn't break through because he didn't know what kind of domain to condense. Chu Xiu could be considered a weirdo. Wei Shuya pondered for a moment before he said, "Your question is indeed very strange. At least in this old man's experience, I have never encountered such a thing. That is because the path you have taken is too unique. However, you can think about it from another angle. To you, what is the path of martial arts? What does it have to do with heaven and earth? Battle Dao." Chu Xiu answered without even thinking about it. From the day he started practicing martial arts, Chu Xiu had always thought so, and he had always done so. He wanted to live a better life, he wanted to stand higher, he wanted to fight. Therefore, to him, martial arts was the way of battle. City Master Shang, What do you think? Wei Shuya asked. Shang Tianliang said in a low voice, the way to live. Chu Xiu has been to that damned place, Green Metropolis. Without strength, you won't even live to the age of 10. Martial arts is to fight against heaven. Martial artists born in Green Metropolis don't know what Tao is. They don't even know what martial arts are. They just want to live. This is human nature, human instinct. Wei Shuya nodded and said, City Master Shang is very close to what you said. The leader of the 9 sky demons, who is also my sworn brother, once said that martial arts is actually the way to defy heaven. The unity of heaven and man is the first time to sense the power of heaven and earth. The martial true core borrows the power of heaven and earth. The true fire refinement controls the power of heaven and earth. And the mystic heaven and earth directly changes the world with one's own strength. Every step of martial arts cultivation seems to be related to heaven and earth, but in fact, it is going against heaven and stealing the power of heaven. Wei Shuya pointed at Chu Xiu, then at himself, and said, You and I were born weak, but we walk step by step to the point where we can move mountains with one hand, break rivers and overturn seas. If this isn't the way to defy heaven, what is? Although you have many martial arts, it is enough if you can comprehend a little. Where the domain is, it is completely under your control. Heaven and earth can no longer suppress you, and the rules can no longer bind you. Within the domain, you are the heavens. Since you can comprehend this, it is no longer important what kind of domain you can evolve in the end, because it is definitely the Tao that you want to walk. Chu Xiu nodded thoughtfully. What Elder Wei said was an experience for Chu Xiu, and also a kind of enlightenment. All along, Chu Xiu's strength had improved by leaps and bounds, and his combat power was off the charts. However, his martial arts realm was a little unstable, and this was what he lacked. Shang Tianliang also said in surprise, Your sworn brother is a talent. If he didn't die, he would definitely be a great figure in the future. Wei Shuya's eyes revealed a trace of sadness, but he pointed at himself and said proudly, The 5 great sky demons of the 9th sky mountain, including this old man, are all mediocre. After saying that, Wei Shuya said in a low voice, It is just that they were all born in the wrong era. Chu Xiu nodded. He understood how Wei Shuya felt. More than 300 years ago, the Kunlun devil cult had just been destroyed for more than 200 years, and the power of the righteous path was at its peak. Even Yi Xiaonan of the moon-worshipping cult had not been born, and the entire demonic path was unable to recover. The 5 great sky demons of the 9th sky mountain were born in that era, and no matter how amazing they were, they could not turn the tide. If they were born in the present, they could also become powerful figures in the demonic path. Just as Chu Xiu was about to go back into seclusion, Su Fengshan suddenly ran in a panic. He held a message and said with a panicked face, My lord, Yi Weikong is coming. Chu Xiu said in a low voice, Has it been confirmed? Su Fengshan nodded repeatedly and said, Yi Weikong is about to finish patrolling Lingluo County. He was the one who personally told the others that he was going to Kangwu County to see what kind of person could kill Yi Tianqing. He said this in front of the county governor's mansion, and many martial artists who were watching heard it. I reckon that they will move in a few days. Chu Xiu nodded and said, All right, I understand. Su Fengshan was stunned. What do you mean you understand? What can I do? Before he could ask, Chu Xiu waved his hand and said, I will settle this matter. Hearing Chu Xiu say this, Su Fengshan did not ask the last sentence and could only leave with worry and hesitation. Chu Xiu frowned and knocked on the table. This Yi Weikong is really narrow-minded. Didn't he just kill a heaven and earth profound realm martial artist under him? And he is still unforgiving? Of course, if Chu Xiu's words were heard by others, they would definitely spit on his face. In the entire Cold River City, there were not many heaven and earth profound realm experts that could be killed by him. Facing an existence in the martial immortal realm head-on, Chu Xiu's head was not that hard. Now that more than a month had passed, he did not know how Master Yuanji was doing. Chu Xiu directly went to the lower realm, but when he just left South China, he saw Master Yuanji, Zhuge Qingshan, and Chao Huan were already busy in South China. Of course, the rootless sacred fire was not directly led to the passageway between the two worlds, but to a branch hall nearby. When Chu Xiu arrived there, he happened to see that in a large formation made entirely of white jade, golden and silver flames were rising straight to the sky. That was the rootless sacred fire burning on the top of Kunlun Mountain. You have succeeded? Seeing Chu Xiu coming, Zhuge Qingshan nodded. Master Yuanji just wanted to report the success, but Chao Huan said impatiently, I will tell you if we succeeded. Do you still need to come and check it yourself? It is only half successful. Although the rootless sacred fire was successfully led here, this kind of natural thing was too overbearing. After it was led here, only 80% of its power could be maintained. Old Man Zhuge's idea was not bad. Using the ice jade produced on the top of Kunlun Mountain as the carrier of the rootless sacred fire formation, it was indeed possible to transmit the rootless sacred fire. However, although the ice jade was born on the top of Kunlun Mountain, it was not a natural thing. Although it was contaminated with a part of the aura of the rootless sacred fire, it still could not be displayed perfectly. Even 80% of its power could not be maintained for a long time. We have tried. 3 days, at most 3 days, the ice jade will completely melt. Without a suitable carrier, don't think of successfully transmitting the rootless sacred fire. Chu Xiu nodded. Not to mention 3 days, 1 day was enough for him. Chu Xiu called Master Yuanji out alone and asked, how long will it take to connect this formation to the Daluotian Mountain? Master Yuanji knew about the Daluotian Mountain and Chu Xiu's plan. Hearing this, he was shocked and said, 2 days, 2 days is enough. This formation was deduced by the 3 of us together. The teleportation formation between the 2 worlds is ready-made. I can also set up a formation in the Daluotian Mountain alone. 2 days is enough. Chu Xiu nodded and returned to the hall. He said to Zhuge Qingshan and Chao Shen, the 2 of you should rest for a while. You can study the formation later. Zhuge Qingshan shrugged indifferently. Anyway, he was forced to do this. Whatever Chu Xiu told him to do, he would do it. But Chowing said with an exasperated expression, why? Do you know how much inspiration you will waste if you stop at the crucial moment? Don't think that you can order us around just because you are the leader of the Kunlun devil cult. You have no right to command us. Chu Xiu looked at Chao Shen and said coldly, remember, this is not a suggestion. It is an order. Also, I hate it when people call themselves me in front of me. Chao Shen was shocked by Chu Xiu's look, but he still said, what? Do you want to kill me? I, Chao Shen, am afraid of everything except death. Chu Xiu sneered. Not afraid of death? There is no one in this world who is not afraid of death. If you want to study these formations, you can only do it when you are alive. If you are dead, will you go to hell and talk about formations with King Yanluo? I will give you one more chance. If you want to die, I will fulfill your wish. Anyway, you are not the only formation grandmaster in Jianghu. No one was afraid of death. No matter how arrogant Chao Shen was, he could see a hint of killing intent in Chu Xiu's eyes. A hint of real killing intent. So in the end, he could only leave dejectedly, not daring to continue to challenge Chu Xiu. Chapter 1163. At the junction of Lingluo County and Cold River City, Yi Weikong's black and gold robe with 9 dragons fluttered in the wind. Dozens of Cold River City cultivators stood behind him, and only Qi Wuhan stood side by side with him. Wuhan, 100 years ago, this place still belonged to High Heaven sect. Qi Wuhan nodded and said, I know. It is said that Hai Luo County was won by City Lord after you fought against 3 High Heaven sects' profound heaven and earth realm masters. Yi Weikong said lightly, then do you know that after the incident, the martial immortals of High Heaven sect came to find trouble with me? It was Little Meng and I who joined forces and used our profound connection technique to fight against the martial immortals. We even carried the madness of perishing together with them. Only then did High Heaven sect refrain from taking action, not daring to go all out against us, and gave up Lingluo Prefecture. Qi Wuhan was stunned. He really didn't know about this. Yi Weikong suddenly laughed and said, young and frivolous. Little Meng is too embarrassed to say such a shameful thing. Of course I won't say it either. At that time, we were very embarrassed. Now that Chu Xiu has killed Yi Tianqing, I will also go and cause trouble for that person of the younger generation. This is truly similar to the scene from back then. The world is a circle, a reincarnation, and no one can escape. Qi Wuhan thought that Yi Weikong didn't want to bully the weak and ruin his reputation, so he quickly said, "City Lord, Chu Xiu is different from others. He has such strength when he is still in the true fire spirit refinement realm. Even I am not sure if I can defeat him. And most importantly, he is a good friend of Lu Sanjin, the Eastern Territory traveler, and will definitely assist Lu Sanjin in the future. This person reminds me of Martial Uncle Meng Xinghe." Yi Weikong shook his head and said with a chuckle, "Little Meng? You think too highly of him. Throughout the tens of thousands of years of Daluotian history, how many people are qualified to stand shoulder to shoulder with little Meng? He is just a talented descendant of the ancient venerables. He can be taken seriously, but not too seriously. Don't worry, I will go to Kangwu County. I'm just thinking about it. In the past, little Meng and I used to scold the martial immortals of High Heaven sect for bullying the weak and being shameless. I didn't expect that I would become the shameless person now. But it doesn't matter. Wuhan, when you reach my position, you will understand that face is the most useless thing." Yi Weikong glanced at the sky and said indifferently, "Let's go and see exactly what sort of figure this Chu Xiu that you hold in such high esteem is. I can teach them a lesson, but I can't kill them. Don't underestimate the Imperial Heaven Pavilion. If I could destroy the Imperial Heaven Pavilion, I would have done so a long time ago. Would I have waited until now? It's a great organization that has been passed down for 10,000 years. I'm sure it has some assets. If I can't survive in the Royal Sky Pavilion, it's all up to you." Outside the Tsungnan Manor, which was originally located in the center of the entire Kangwu County, was sparsely populated today. It was as if most people had heard the news and did not want to be involved in this mess. At noon, the sky outside the Tsungnan Mansion, which was originally clear and boundless, was suddenly covered with dark clouds. The Tsungnan Mansion, which was shrouded by the scorching sun all year round, was now blowing a cold wind and falling heavy snow. Chu Xiu looked up and frowned. For a martial immortal level existence to truly attack, merely their auras would be extremely astonishing. "Let's go and welcome City Governor Yi of the Cold River City." Chu Xiu waved his hand and led Lu Fengxian and the others straight to the top of the city wall. Su Fengshan and the others looked at each other. Since Chu Xiu did not allow them to go, should they go? Gritting their teeth, the three of them followed. If they retreated now, not only would they offend Chu Xiu, they would also be unable to explain to the Imperial Heaven Pavilion. When they reached the top of the city wall, they saw a group of people slowly approaching from the end of the road. To be precise, they were not people because they did not ride on horses. Instead, they were riding on a dozen huge white tigers. "City Governor Yi of the Cold River City, why have you come to the Kangwu County? From what I know, this should be the territory of the Imperial Heaven Pavilion. Is it appropriate for you to come here, City Governor Yi?" Yi Weikong sized up Chu Xiu. When he saw Chu Xiu's current cultivation, he could not help but reveal a hint of surprise in his eyes. Previously, when Qi Wuhan described Chu Xiu in such an exaggerated manner, he felt that Qi Wuhan was exaggerating. Looking at it now, Qi Wuhan was right. It was indeed very shocking for someone to reach the half-step profound insight realm at such a young age. At that moment, Qi Wuhan's eyes were also filled with surprise because he discovered that Chu Xiu's cultivation was actually stronger than before. How could his cultivation speed be so fast? A look of surprise flashed in Yi Weikong's eyes. Then he shook his head and said, "It's indeed inappropriate, but I still came." Yi Weikong's words contained a strong sense of arrogance and domineeringness. So what if it was inappropriate? Would the Imperial Heaven Pavilion dare to ask him for an explanation when he came to the Kangwu County? Also, I don't like people standing on high ground and talking to me. Yi Weikong pinched a seal with one hand. In the next moment, the wind and snow that filled the sky turned into a huge dragon. It directly wrapped around the city wall of the Tsungnan Prefecture, and actually pulled the entire city wall down. With a loud bang, the formation on the city wall did not even last for a breath's time before it began to crack. The huge city wall began to collapse under the pull of the huge ice and frost dragon. Moreover, That powerful force that wrapped around everyone was also going to pull them down to the ground. No one expected that Yi Weikong, who was a famous expert in the East region, and even in the entire Daoyuotian continent, would suddenly attack them, the juniors. Qi Wuhan, who was standing at the side, felt very comfortable. In the past, Chu Xiu had also said something like this to him. In the end, he did not gain any advantage. Instead, his subordinates suffered losses. Now it was Chu Xiu's turn to have a taste of this. The power of the martial immortal realm was simply impossible to resist. Not to mention that Chu Xiu's people did not react in time. Even if they did, it would be useless. At this moment, the demonic aura around Chu Xiu's body surged, and began to frantically absorb the qi of heaven and earth. With the use of the law phenomenon of heaven and earth, the thousands of Zhongtal body of the devil broke free from the pull of the huge dragon. At the same time, it also tore the dragon apart. The wind and snow intertwined like a hurricane. At this moment, the entire Songnan prefecture was already in a mess. The law phenomenon of heaven and earth only lasted for a short moment before it dissipated. However, Chu Xiu's face was already pale. A look of surprise appeared on Yi Weikong's face again. Divine ability? You haven't officially reached the metaphysic realm of heaven and earth, but you've already mastered a divine ability? Yi Tianqing died in your hands. It's not an injustice. As a martial immortal, Yi Weikong naturally knew about divine abilities. He even mastered a few divine abilities himself. However, the existence of divine abilities was something that even an expert in the mysterious enlightenment realm might not be able to completely master. It was already amazing that Chu Xiu could use a divine ability now. Yi Weikong waved his hand and said, very good, very good. Wuhan exaggerated your words, and you are indeed worthy of such an evaluation. The old man from the Imperial Sky Pavilion came to me. I promised not to pursue the matter of you killing Yi Tianqing. However, everyone in the eastern region knows that I, Yi Weikong, am not broad-minded. Enduring for a while won't calm me down. Instead, the more I think about it, the angrier I get. Yi Tianqing is my junior, and my right-hand man. You have to pay a price for killing him. Otherwise, the eastern region and the Daoyuotian people will think that my Cold River City has lost its former spirit, and that I, Yi Weikong, can't fight anymore. I can't go back on my word. I don't want your life, but since you killed my right-hand man, you have to compensate me with your arms. The expressions of Su Fengshan and the others changed when they heard Yi Weikong's words. They expected Yi Weikong to come looking for trouble, but they didn't expect him to be so unforgiving even with the help of the old pavilion master. What was the difference between taking his arms and crippling his martial arts? In the early years, they heard that Yi Weikong was domineering and would seek revenge for the smallest grievance. However, that was when Cold River City had just risen. Yi Weikong had to be domineering when fighting alone. Now that Cold River City was a large sect in the eastern region, and he was a martial immortal expert, he was still being overbearing to a junior. That was a bit shameless. On the other hand, if a martial immortal expert didn't even care about his reputation, what else could he do? At that moment, within the Songnan Manor, gold and silver flames soared into the sky. The aura melted the heaven and earth, and it was so powerful that even Yi Weikong couldn't help but pay attention to it. A figure appeared in the strange yet powerful flames, and with an aged voice he said, City Lord Yi, let the juniors settle the dispute between the juniors. Don't you think it's a bit unreasonable for you to take action yourself? Yi Weikong frowned and said, You're this child's master? What a strange flame. I've actually never seen anyone from your line. The figure in the flames said indifferently, My line spends most of its time living in seclusion in the depths of the Diluo mountain range. We rarely step out into the Jianghu, so it's normal that you don't know me, City Lord Yi. Yi Weikong suddenly smiled and said, When Gu Zun's descendant roams the Jianghu, Gu Zun will not interfere with his disciples' training. I'm very familiar with Gu Zun. What you're doing is against the rules of your line. The figure in the flames shook his head and said, That also depends on the situation. My disciple is outstanding enough and qualified to inherit my line. But if I don't step in to let him face a martial immortal at the spirit refinement realm with true fire, wouldn't I be crippling an outstanding disciple? City Lord Yi, you're bullying the weak. That's also against the rules. Yi Weikong said indifferently. It's been a long time since I've seen Gu Zun stand up for his disciple. Do you want to become an enemy of Cold River City for your disciple? The figure in the flames shook his head and said, I've never wanted to become an enemy of Cold River City. My line also has no intention of stepping into the Jianghu. My disciple will only be a guest in the Imperial Sky Pavilion for a while, not for a lifetime. Therefore, the person who should be asking is me. City Lord Yi, are you going to make a martial immortal enemy just to vent your anger? Both sides were interrogating each other, and their auras instantly clashed. Even the air in the entire Tsungnan Manor seemed to be stagnant. On one side was the rootless sacred fire burning in the city, and the fire pillar shot up to the sky. On the other side was the whistling cold wind, making the Kangwu County scorching under the scorching sun and snowing snow. The two auras were in a stalemate, so much so that everyone present didn't even dare to breathe loudly. Chapter 1164. Enveloped by the rootless sacred flame, Wei Shuya's expression was calm. Of course, his heart was calm as well. There was no trace of panic. In the eyes of most of the Hidden Devil Clan's martial artists, Elder Wei was an old man who did things slowly and steadily. He had prestige, but no spirit. In fact, they had forgotten how many major events Wei Shuya had experienced in his life. The 5 Skyfiends of the 9th Heaven Mountain had fought against the entire righteous path when the demonic path was at its lowest point. That situation was practically certain death, but they still did it. Their courage and responsibility caused others to exclaim in admiration. Later on, Wei Shuya single-handedly propped up the facade of the Hidden Devil Clan when it was about to fall apart. Later on, he followed Chu Xiu and participated in several great battles between the righteous path and the demonic path. Every time he was surrounded by danger. This time, it was just a small matter. Yi Weikong also stared at Wei Shuya, who was wrapped in the rootless sacred flame. He couldn't see Wei Shuya's face clearly, but he could hear the confidence and fearlessness in Wei Shuya's voice. He couldn't see through the person in front of him. The strange innate fire enveloped him, making it impossible for Yi Weikong to determine the other party's true strength. Yi Weikong wondered which branch of the Prime Sovereign could control such a powerful innate fire. Given his relationship with Meng Xinghe, Yi Weikong knew a lot about the branch of the Prime Sovereign, but he had never heard of such a person. The two sides confronted each other for dozens of breaths. Qi Wuhan was so nervous that he didn't dare to speak. He wanted Yi Weikong to kill Chu Xiu because he felt threatened by Chu Xiu. Now that the Prime Sovereign behind Chu Xiu had unexpectedly broken the rules and protected him, Cold River City couldn't do anything. A martial immortal was obviously a greater threat than the current Chu Xiu. Cold River City could benefit from a fight to the death with the Imperial Sky Pavilion, but nothing could be gained from a fight with a Prime Sovereign. After a while, Yi Weikong waved his hand and said indifferently, "Retreat." Qi Wuhan finally breathed a sigh of relief when he heard Yi Weikong say this word. To fight a martial immortal level expert to the death at a time like this was not a sensible thing to do. Although Yi Weikong had always been domineering, he was more rational than anyone else. After Yi Weikong left, Chu Xiu immediately ran back to the prefectural governor manor. Su Fengshan and the others shook their heads enviously behind him. Gu Zun's successor had the backing of a martial immortal. Even the Lord of Cold River City would not dare to act recklessly. In a secret chamber of the county governor manor, Wei Shuya's face was pale. "Elder Wei, are you okay?" Chu Xiu quickly went up and asked. Wei Shuya shook his head and said, "I'm fine. I didn't do anything. I just forcefully controlled the rootless sacred flame." Martial immortal level existences were truly frightening. Previously, I was still thinking that if he were to attack, I would use the rootless sacred flame to exchange a few blows with him to test his strength. But now it looks like it's fortunate that he didn't attack. If he did, I would have been exposed. Chu Xiu nodded. According to the information from the Royal Sky Pavilion, Yi Weikong's strength could be considered to be extremely strong even amongst martial immortals. At the very least, the Royal Sky Pavilion's old pavilion master and Li Wuxiang were no match for him. Wei Shuya sighed and said, "When I was in the lower realm, I wasn't young anymore. In addition to the fact that I had no hope of improving, I actually started to slack off in my cultivation. Now that I'm in the Daluocean, I finally understand what it means by, there's always someone stronger than you. The environment in the Daluocean has given me a chance to improve. That Yi Weikong is a very thoughtful person. People like him usually think a lot and worry a lot. Therefore, he retreated this time. As long as you don't provoke the Cold River City in the short term, he probably won't attack you. Let Yuanji finish the formation as soon as possible. It would be best if the rootless sacred flame could stay in the Daluocean for a long period of time. That way, we would have a trump card. In the future, we will be able to be more stable. This old man will also go into closed-door training. I want to see if I can pry into the wonders of the martial immortal realm before my lifespan runs out. Chu Xiu nodded and said, with your strength, the chances are very high. Wei Shiya laughed and said, I don't even have that much confidence in myself. I'm speaking the truth. Chu Xiu wasn't flattering Wei Shiya. He was speaking the truth. In the lower realm, Wei Shiya's environment was not considered good. Putting aside his own martial arts, he had an obsession in his heart. Therefore, he had forcefully integrated the martial arts of his sworn brothers into his own martial arts. This had already wasted a lot of time. After all, not everyone was like Chu Xiu, where the more diverse the things they learned, the better. Moreover, that period of time was also the most difficult time for the hidden demon line. Wei Shiya kept a low profile and endured while developing the strength of the hidden demon line. It could be said that the time when he was in the prime of his life was completely wasted. Now, with the environment, resources and time, it wasn't difficult for Wei Shiya to step into the martial immortal realm. Wei Shiya went into closed-door training. Shang Tianliang found a place to grow vegetables. Most of Chu Xiu's subordinates were also in closed-door training. After all, the environment in the Daluocean couldn't be wasted. At the same time, Chu Xiu also set up a stronghold in the southern barbaric land. Palaces were being built. After Master Yuanji completed the formation connecting to the rootless sacred flame, he would go and set up the formation in the stronghold. Those who could cultivate freely in the Daluocean were all Chu Xiu's trusted subordinates. They were the kind that he could completely trust. After the stronghold and the formation were completed, Chu Xiu could also let some of the Kunlun Devil cult's elites come to the Daluocean to cultivate. Of course, he wouldn't tell them about the Daluocean. He would only tell them that it was a secret realm accidentally discovered by the Kunlun Devil cult. It was filled with the essence of heaven and earth, specially for them to cultivate. Moreover, the range of their activities was restricted by the formation. They could only stay in the stronghold and couldn't go out. After arranging everything, Chu Xiu wanted to go into closed-door training and try to find his own ultimate martial path like Wei Shiya said. However, Lu Sanjin came to his door. As soon as he entered the door, Lu Sanjin shouted loudly, "Brother Chu, where is that senior? Let me see him quickly." It's so satisfying to be able to scare away that old guy Yi Weikong from Cold River City. Chu Xiu said indifferently, "Don't shout. My master has already left. But thanks to your reminder, I informed my master to come over." Lu Sanjin snorted coldly and said, "Since the rise of Cold River City, our Imperial Sky Pavilion has been fighting with that old guy. We know him very well. That old guy isn't a person who cares about his face. Although he promised to let this matter go, he might come and make trouble for you." Chu Xiu shook his head and said, "It's normal. A person who cares about his face won't be able to reach this step." As he was speaking, Mei Qinglian came over. She probably wanted to tell Chu Xiu about the situation of the establishment of the Southern Man's stronghold. Since Mei Qinglian came here, all kinds of chores were taken care of by Mei Qinglian. She was used to it. In the mortal world, it was also Mei Qinglian who was in charge of these things. Seeing that there was an outsider here, Mei Qinglian just made a gesture to Chu Xiu and left directly. Lu Sanjin looked at the charming Mei Qinglian with his mouth agape. He turned his head and said to Chu Xiu with a disdainful face, "Brother Chu, who said to abstain from sex?" There was such a charming great beauty hidden in the house. Abstain from sex? What the F***ck? Chu Xiu didn't bother to explain Mei Qinglian's identity to him. He said directly, "Brother Lu, Why did you come to me? As the Eastern region wayfarer, you are very busy. You don't have to come to my place for a stroll, do you? Lu Sanjin smiled awkwardly and said, Brother Chu, you have a sharp foresight. I can't hide anything from you. Actually, I'm here to ask for your help. What help? Lu Sanjin asked in return. Don't you know about the recent events in Fonglin County? What happened in Fonglin County? Lu Sanjin smiled bitterly. Because of the idea you gave Jiangzong back then. Now Jiangzong is out of control. The sects in Fonglin County rebelled, and a few major powers emerged. Jiangzong can no longer suppress them. There are only a few prefectures in the Imperial Sky Pavilion in the entire Fonglin County now. Chu Xiu raised an eyebrow and said, Don't push the blame. This has nothing to do with me. When I told Jiangzong about this, I told him that it's okay to rear Gu, but in the end he has to prevent the Gu from rebelling. It's easiest to cultivate a major power in the midst of war. We have to nip it in the bud. However, it's definitely not that simple. Even if, according to what I said, a few major powers emerged in Fonglin County, Jiangzong is not an idiot. On the contrary, he's a very cautious person. There's no way he doesn't know that he's playing with fire. Moreover, the Imperial Sky Pavilion has ruled Fonglin County for so many years. Even if a few major powers emerged, their prestige is still there. They might play some tricks, or they might overpower the prefectural governor, but to openly rebel, are they tired of living? Lu Sanjin shook his head and said, I don't blame you, Brother Chu. I only blame Jiangzong for being careless. However, Brother Chu, you're right. There's indeed an inside story behind this. Previously, Frost River City was eyeing the Imperial Sky Pavilion covetously. After the old pavilion master made a trip to the Imperial Sky Pavilion, he suffered some injuries. Initially, this news was only known by the Imperial Sky Pavilion. Who would have thought that the news would spread? Moreover, someone must have instigated trouble in the dark, causing the powers in Fonglin County to rebel. The example of Frost River City's rise was right in front of them. Everyone wanted to be the next Frost River City. The pavilion master has a lot of matters to attend to now. The heaven and earth mystic illuminating realm experts in the sect can't be separated. Even if they could be separated, it would be useless for them to go. Brother Chu, your strength is clear. Kangwu County has few powers in the martial world. The only trouble is the barbarians, but you've already settled it. Therefore, the pavilion master wants me to ask Brother Chu to help solve the problem in Fonglin County. Chu Xiu rubbed his chin and thought for a while before he said, That's not a problem. However, I have a request. What is it? I want the Imperial Sky Pavilion to order that the entire Dilua mountain range and the area near the southern barbaric lands be included in the territory of Kangwu County. Chapter 1165. Lu Sanjin felt strange about Chu Xiu's request. Why did Chu Xiu want to go against the southern barbarians? The Imperial Sky Pavilion drew such a large area of Kangwu County purely because they couldn't control the southern barbarians. The barbarians were very troublesome. In the later stages, even the prefectures near the southern barbarians like Nan'an Prefecture were abolished. Of course, they wouldn't draw the border further in. That was already deep in the Dilua mountain range. Why? Is it difficult? Lu Sanjin shook his head and said, No, that place is unowned. Anyway, it's bordered by the Imperial Sky Pavilion. We can draw as large as we want. But Brother Chu, what do you want such a place for? These barbarians are already well behaved now. This is already considered good. Don't cause another barbarian riot. Chu Xiu said faintly, It's nothing. It's just that I saw that the southern barbaric land is rich in resources, and am preparing to accumulate some resources in name. Anyway, those barbarians don't know who this land belongs to. In fact, Chu Xiu wanted this area because he wanted to establish a stronghold in the southern barbarians and find a reasonable excuse and reason. After all, with so many people in such a large building, as long as one wasn't blind, even if it was built in the depths of the southern barbarians, someone would still find it. All right then, Brother Chu, let's set off now. Fonglin County has been in chaos for a while. Don't let it continue. Chu Xiu said in surprise. You don't have to tell this to the Imperial Sky Pavilion headquarters. You agreed just like that? Lu Sanjin pursed his lips and said, "What's there to say about such a small matter? I can make the decision directly. Don't underestimate my authority as the Eastern Region traveler." Hearing Lu Sanjin say so, Chu Xiu nodded and said, "All right, leave the matter to me." After saying that, Chu Xiu looked for Mei Qinglian and asked her to call out Lu Jianghe and the others who were in closed-door cultivation and get ready to move. This rebellion couldn't be solved with just one person. Chu Xiu had to bring more people with him. After all, he alone could not kill so many people. Lu Sanjin looked at Chu Xiu in surprise. He did not recognize any of these people. Most importantly, the aura of these people was more terrifying than the previous one. Although Lu Sanjin did not think that he was weaker than them, among the martial artists of the same level, their strength could be ranked at the top. When Chu Xiu told Lu Sanjin about the identities that Lu Jianghe and the others had made up, Lu Sanjin didn't have much doubt. Instead, he made up a lot of things in his mind. Gu Zun's successor must have had more than one disciple. Perhaps these people were disciples who had been eliminated by Chu Xiu's master, so it made sense that they were now assisting Chu Xiu. However, Lu Sanjin still took a few more glances at Lu Fengxian, causing Lu Fengxian to feel a little strange. He asked curiously, "Young Master Lu, why are you looking at me? Is there something on my face?" Lu Sanjin sighed and shook his head. "No, I just feel that you are very lucky, Brother Lu. Generally speaking, handsome people are generally not strong, or they all have a personality that deserves a beating, like Xianyuan Wushuang. Brother Lu is so handsome, and has such a gentle personality. Even among the descendants of Gu Zun, your realm is definitely not weak. I think Brother Lu should be called Wushuang." In fact, Lu Sanjin was not ugly, but his pair of small eyes somewhat ruined his image, always giving people a feeling that he was not in harmony with others. Lu Fengxian nodded with a smile. "I am indeed very lucky. Why do I feel that Brother Lu is very calm?" Lu Fengxian still had a gentle smile on his face. "Because there are always people who say that I am handsome. I am used to it." Lu Sanjin choked for a moment, but this kind of thing was quite normal for Lu Fengxian. Along the way, Lu Sanjin asked Chu Xiu, "Brother Chu, how are you going to deal with the rebellion in Fanglin County?" Chu Xiu narrowed his eyes. "How else can I deal with the rebellion? Of course, I will kill them all." Lu Sanjin was once again choked by Chu Xiu's words. He said hesitantly, "So simple and crude?" Chu Xiu stretched out a finger and waved it. "Simple but not crude. Killing is always the best way to deal with this kind of thing." Lu Sanjin looked at Chu Xiu and then at Lu Fengxian. He suddenly felt that these descendants of Gu Zun seemed to have some problems with their worldview. Back at the Nine Phoenix Sword sect in Fanglin County, the sect that had been doing quite well was now in a mess. Many disciples fled in panic. No one cared, and no one could do anything about it. Lin Yazi looked at Lin Fengwu with a sorrowful expression. "Go girl. Go to Kangwu County and seek refuge with official Chu. He is the prefectural governor there. For the sake of our past relationship, he will probably take you in. The Tsangtian alliance has swept through Fanglin County. The prefectural governor has taken care of our Nine Phoenix Sword sect, but we are doomed now." Ever since Chu Xiu left, Lin Yazi had instructed Jiaingzong to take care of the Nine Phoenix Sword sect. Jiaingzong had taken care of the Nine Phoenix Sword sect and given them many benefits. He had also helped Lin Yazi many times when he was in conflict with other sections. However, Lin Yazi was a person who couldn't be seen in public. He got carried away too easily. With Jiaingzong's protection, he could be said to be a tyrant in Fanglin County, and had offended many other martial arts sections. At this moment, Fanglin County was in chaos. All the martial arts sects in Fanglin County were involved, and the Tsangtian Alliance was one of the most developed sections. It was formed by several large sects in Fanglin County. When faced with such a situation, other sects could still surrender and join the Tsangtian Alliance. However, the Nine Phoenix Sword sect was too close to Jiaingzong. Even one of the large sects that formed the Tsangtian Alliance had offended the Nine Phoenix Sword sect. Therefore, even if Lin Yazi wanted to submit, he did not have the chance. Lin Fengwu said with a sobbing tone. What about you, father? Come with me. At most, we can rebuild the Nine Phoenix Sword Sect in Kangwu County. Lin Yazi looked at the main hall of the Nine Phoenix Sword Sect with a sorrowful look in his eyes. Go. You can't go. Others can go, but I can't. If I don't let them vent their anger, they might even chase after you throughout Fonglin County. You might not even be able to walk out of Fonglin County. Moreover, the Nine Phoenix Sword Sect is the foundation that father left behind. It is the foundation of the Lin family. If I can't protect the foundation, I will be the sinner of the Lin family. If I give up the foundation and flee in a sorry state, I will be the shame of the Lin family. Others can go, but I can't. Today I, Lin Yazi, will live or die with the Nine Phoenix Sword Sect. Lin Yazi, who had been cautious and calculative his entire life, was finally unyielding for once. However, at this moment, a sneer came from outside. Oh, I didn't expect you, Lin Yazi, to have such courage. I have a whole new level of respect for you. However, you don't have to be so conflicted. Today, the entire Nine Phoenix Sword Sect will die. There's no need for modesty. Hearing this voice, Lin Yazi's expression immediately changed. By the time he walked out, the entire Nine Phoenix Sword Sect's mountain gate had already been surrounded by hundreds of cultivators. The person leading them wore battle armor and carried a heavy sword on his back. He was the leader of the Firmament Alliance, Xiahou Jiuxiao, a newly advanced heaven and earth profound understanding expert. The person who spoke was a middle-aged man in a silver brocade robe with a gloomy expression. He was the leader of the Fei family in Fonglin Prefecture, Fei Changli. Of course, he had already become the deputy leader of the Tsongtian Alliance. Previously, the Fei family had a conflict with the Nine Phoenix Sword Sect because of a deal. Later on, the Nine Phoenix Sword Sect not only dealt with the Fei family through Jiangzhong, but they also took advantage of the situation and made the Fei family bleed. This made Fei Changli gnash his teeth in hatred. The Fei family's strength far surpassed the Nine Phoenix Sword Sects, but they still suffered such a great loss when facing the Nine Phoenix Sword Sect. This made Fei Changli hate the Nine Phoenix Sword Sect in Jiangzhong as well. Therefore, after the chaos in Fonglin Prefecture, the Fei family came to an agreement with the other forces to form the Tsongtian Alliance and rebel against the Imperial Sky Pavilion. Lin Yazi glared at Fei Changli. Fei Changli, the rule of the pugilistic world is that family members should not be harmed. I offended you in the past. Isn't it enough for me to pay with my life? Fei Changli sneered. Lin Yazi, you're still so naive. Who told you that family shouldn't be implicated? I'll kill you and destroy your Nine Phoenix Sword Sect, but I'll spare your daughter's life. When she cultivates in the future, she'll seek revenge on me when I'm old. Everyone knows that your daughter is a talented young elite in Fonglin Prefecture. She doesn't lose to any man. No one knows what realm she can grow to in the future. Do you think I'm an idiot if I don't remove the roots? At this moment, there was a sudden slap. Well said. Cut the weeds and pull up the roots. Either you don't do it, or you do it to the extreme. Leader Fei, if you still have this kind of awareness in your next life, you'll definitely be someone. The people of the Tsongtian Alliance looked down. More than 10 martial artists went up the mountain one after another. The weakest one was at the real pellet state. The leaders were all masters at the true fire spirit refinement state. When Lin Yazi and Lin Fengwu saw the people coming, they were so excited that they couldn't speak. Lin Fengwu said in surprise, Senior Chu. As Lu Sanjin was the East Territory wayfarer, these small sects were naturally not qualified to know him. However, although Chu Xiu didn't stay in Fonglin Prefecture for long, he had made quite a name for himself. When everyone present heard the word Chu, they guessed who the person in front of them was. Wasn't he the prefectural governor of Kangwu Prefecture? Why would he come to Fonglin Prefecture? Xiahou Jiuxiao took a closer look at Chu Xiu. When he realized that although Chu Xiu's aura was strong, it had not reached the heaven and earth elemental state yet. He couldn't help but snort softly. With the current situation in Fonglin Prefecture, even if a powerhouse at the heaven and earth elemental state came, it would be useless, let alone Chu Xiu. Fei Changli was only stunned for a moment before he said coldly, Chu Xiu, I know you. You're the successor of Guzun. You're different from the other people in the Imperial Sky Pavilion. Now that the Imperial Sky Pavilion is about to collapse, you'd better go back and be the successor of Guzun. Don't follow the Imperial Sky Pavilion to the end of the road of death." Chuxiu nodded and said, "That makes sense, so you can die now." As soon as Chuxiu's voice fell, a flash of saber light rose without any warning. Chapter 1166. Chuxiu had come to Fenglin County to solve a problem. As for how he was going to solve it, it was simple: kill. Since he was going to kill, there was no need to waste so much breath. He just had to show his blade. When Chuxiu's blade fell, the people from the Tsongtian Alliance could not react in time. They were not prepared at all. Who would have thought that Chuxiu would start using his blade while they were talking nicely? Xiahou Jiuxiao wanted to release his territory, but Chuxiu's blade was so fast that it surpassed his reaction speed. In the blink of an eye, it was in front of Fei Chongli. Fei Chongli let out a wild roar under the great terror of life and death. Qi and blood erupted from his body, and countless qi of heaven and earth surged into his body. Together with his qi and blood, they turned into two huge blood dragons that condensed into a coiling dragon seal in front of him. With a loud bang, the power exploded. The coiling dragon seal dissipated, and the blade gleam shattered. Fei Chongli's head was drenched in cold sweat. Even he did not expect his reaction to be so fast. However, in the next moment he felt that something was wrong. By the time he reacted, an extremely sharp blade gleam had easily broken through his shield of vigor and cut him in half. An illusion. Everyone present was startled. Nobody expected Chuxiu's first blade to be fake. Even Xiahou Jiuxiao could not react in time. At that moment, Xiahou Jiuxiao's expression turned solemn. With such combat power, it did not matter if Chuxiu was in the ethereal enlightenment state or not. Fei Chongli was killed immediately, but Xiahou Jiuxiao did not attack recklessly. Instead, he said in a deep voice, "Chuxiu, do you have to stand on the Imperial Sky Pavilion's side and fight against us? As the successor of Guzun, he should think about himself first. Why are you risking your life for the Imperial Sky Pavilion? You're the prefectural governor of Kangwu County now. Why don't you join me in rebelling against the Imperial Sky Pavilion? By then you won't be the prefectural governor of Kangwu County, but the master." Chuxiu nodded and said, "That's a good suggestion. I can consider it." Seeing that Chuxiu agreed so readily, Xiahou Jiuxiao was also stunned, as though he did not expect Chuxiu to agree just like that. "By the way, I heard that your surname is Xiahou, right?" Chuxiu suddenly said. Xiahou Jiuxiao nodded his head in a daze. He felt that he couldn't keep up with Chuxiu's train of thought. What did this have to do with his surname Xiahou? Chuxiu shook his head lightly and said, "Unfortunately, I hate people with the surname Xiahou. So, before I rebel against the Imperial Heaven Pavilion, I'll have to ask you to die first." "Are you messing with me?" Xiahou Jiuxiao's expression immediately darkened. He gripped the heavy sword on his back tightly and withdrew the aura around him. However, he was like a volcano that was about to erupt, extremely terrifying. Before he publicly rebelled against the Imperial Sky Pavilion, he was already considered a prominent figure in Fenglin County. He even established the Heaven Alliance and dared to challenge the Imperial Sky Pavilion. Now that a junior like Chuxiu dared to mess with him like this, there was no longer any possibility of peace talks between the two parties. Chuxiu continued to shake his head and said, "Your abilities aren't bad. It's rare for you to be able to suppress your powers to such a stable level not long after you entered the heaven and earth illumination. Unfortunately, a brain is a good thing, but you don't have it. The Heaven Alliance? The Imperial Sky is dead, and the Heaven Alliance will rise? You're just a pitiful worm that's being used. Even if the Imperial Sky Pavilion declines, it won't be your turn to rise. You're courting death." Xiahou Jiuxiao roared furiously. The power around him gathered at one point, and like a volcano, it erupted. Xiahou Jiuxiao held the heavy sword in his hand and slashed it down. At that moment, the power was like a landslide and the ground was cracking. The strong pressure caused a loud sonic boom to be heard in the air. At the same time, the ground under Chuxiu's feet began to crack inch by inch due to the power. However, there was a strong suction force coming from the ground. It directly bound Chu Xiu to the ground, making it impossible for him to dodge. In the past, because of the existence of the formation breaking technique, Chu Xiu had never paid much attention to things like domains. Moreover, when two heaven and earth illumination powerhouses both had domains, they rarely used their domains to attack each other. When Chu Xiu was about to step into the heaven and earth illumination, he realized that domains were actually very important. It was because they allowed you to control and command on your own. They could even change the performance of a part of the world. It was a continuation of your martial arts path. After hearing Wei Shu's explanation, Chu Xiu then paid attention to his domain. Xiahou Jiuxiao's domain was very simple. It was related to the earth and could change the suction force of the ground. It made Chu Xiu feel like he was rooted in the ground and couldn't break free. Seeing the heavy sword fall, Chu Xiu nodded in understanding. The earth and terrains are the same. Although it's simple, it's very useful. Not bad, not bad. As Chu Xiu's voice fell, the formation breaking technique was already unsheathed. The saber light was like a cold moon, shining so brightly that people couldn't even open their eyes. After smelting the listening spring rain, the formation breaking technique also changed a little. It had some characteristics of the listening spring rain in it. The extreme sharpness seemed to tear apart the entire space. Xiahou Jiuxiao realized that his domain was collapsing. All the power was pressed on the heavy sword. When it fell, it had the power to shatter a mountain. Even the entire mountain peak where the Nine Phoenix Sword sect was located could be directly smashed by his sword. However, when the heavy sword that was as wide as a door collided with the seemingly slender long saber in Chu Xiu's hand, it was the heavy sword in his hand that was torn apart. Under that extreme sharpness, the heavy sword in Xiahou Jiuxiao's hand was directly cut in half. The weapon's spirit had already dissipated in an instant. What was even more frightening was that the powerful force had already slashed along the body of the sword. This made him feel a surge of killing intent. Xiahou Jiuxiao stepped on the ground and crossed his arms. He was as unmoving as a mountain, like a towering mountain, blocking in front of him. Layers of soil and rocks protruded, like a mountain wall rushing towards Chu Xiu's saber. However, it was still useless. With an explosive sound, Xiahou Jiuxiao's body was directly blasted into the mountain wall, smashing out a huge pit. Lu Sanjin looked at Chu Xiu with his mouth wide open in shock. What level of power was this? Xiahou Jiuxiao, a heaven and earth ethereal realm expert who seemed to be very good at strength, was actually blasted away by Chu Xiu. He lost his weapon in a single exchange. This was a little too frightening. However, what was even more frightening was still to come. Chu Xiu waved his hand and said indifferently, "Kill." Following his order, Lu Jianghe and the others immediately rushed out. Wasn't it just killing people? To them, it had become a habit to follow behind Chu Xiu and kill people. Therefore, next, Lu Sanjin saw what was called professional. If he could kill people in one move, there was absolutely no need for a second move. The strength of Lu Jianghe and the others was definitely the existence of the true fire spirit refinement realm. They were rare experts. Warriors of the same level against them could not be said to be unable to withstand a single blow, but they could not withstand a few moves. Even though he suspected that she had an illicit relationship with Chu Xiu, that dainty beauty did not even bat an eyelid when she killed people. Her methods were even more sinister. The karmic fire of the red lotus bloomed and burned people from the inside out to ashes. Xiahou Jiuxiao crawled out of the pit. His physical body was strong, and he had used many methods to offset the power of the slash just now, so he did not suffer too many injuries. However, seeing that the subordinates he had gathered with great difficulty were actually crazily slaughtered by Chu Xiu's side, Xiahou Jiuxiao was about to go crazy. Chu Xiu brat, die. Following Xiahou Jiuxiao's angry roar, the muscles all over his body exploded, revealing layers of demonic patterns on his skin that was exposed outside the armor. He inserted his hands into the ground and suddenly pulled up, causing the entire mountain where the Nine Phoenix Sword sect was located to emit waves of tremors. Two huge earth dragons were forcibly pulled out from the ground by Xiahou Jiuxiao. Like 200 of feet long rods, with the pressure of Mount Tai, they directly fell towards Chu Xiu. Chu Xiu's expression did not change. As he formed a seal with his hands, the two-sided Buddha Dharma idol had already risen from behind him. The Vairocana Dharma idol formed a colorless fixed palm seal. As soon as the seal was formed, it constantly changed. As the power twisted, the two huge earth dragons were directly crushed by this power. The third eye of the Mahakala Dharma idol released a large amount of apocalyptic fire, enveloping Xiahou Jiuxiao within it. However, unexpectedly, the shattered earth dragons seemed to have a life of their own. The fragments condensed in midair, turning into two smaller earth dragons that intertwined and overlapped with each other, enveloping Chu Xiu entirely. This move was not as fierce and violent as Xiahou Jiuxiao's from before. Instead, it was more feminine, with endless variations. Within the world annihilation flames, Xiahou Jiuxiao didn't care about the burning of the world annihilation flames at all. All of his power was condensed in his fist, bringing with it a powerful storm that could tear the heavens and split the earth. He directly charged out of the world annihilation flames and blasted towards Chu Xiu, who was imprisoned in the earth dragon. In the next moment, the earth dragons exploded, and large cracks appeared on the mountain where the Nine Phoenix Sword Sect was located. Boulders tumbled down continuously, as if it was about to collapse. Xiahou Jiuxiao looked ahead in disbelief. After the earth dragons exploded, there was no image of Chu Xiu coughing up blood from the punch. There was only a figure covered in gold and silver flames that collided with his fist. Two powerful forces surged back and forth between the two fists, and they were in a stalemate. Your foundation of power is not bad, but it's a pity that it's still not enough. Chu Xiu shook his head in disappointment. Xiahou Jiuxiao was weaker than he had imagined. He had just broken through to the heaven and earth elemental realm a few months ago, and his power had just stabilized. What about Chu Xiu? He killed Moliha, who was unparalleled in illusions, killed Yi Tianqing of Cold River City, who was personally taught by two martial immortals, and killed the abbot of the North and South Buddhist sects in the lower realm. The lives of so many heaven and earth elemental realm experts were in the hands of Chu Xiu. His strength was superimposed with their lives. Xiahou Jiuxiao, who had just stepped into the heaven and earth elemental realm, was really not enough. The apocalyptic fire had already risen from under Xiahou Jiuxiao's feet, but Chu Xiu's figure suddenly disappeared in front of him. Illusion. Xiahou Jiuxiao reacted in an instant. It was that kind of illusory and strange illusion again. Xiahou Jiuxiao retracted his fist and retreated. He formed a seal with his hand and pressed down on the ground. In an instant, the entire ground was stirred up like an earth dragon turning over. However, right in front of him, at the spot where Chu Xiu had disappeared, a resplendent crescent-shaped saber light had already slashed horizontally. Chapter 1167. Xiahou Jiuxiao was very unlucky, because he had met Chu Xiu, who was at the peak of his battle prowess. After killing several experts of the heaven and earth profound realm in succession, Chu Xiu's battle prowess had also been pushed to a true peak. Especially Moriha's illusions. Although Chu Xiu was destined to be unable to master illusions and reach Moriha's level of condensing illusions into reality, the effect of using it at a critical moment was very good. Experts of the heaven and earth profound realm were also human, and it was impossible for them to maintain absolute rationality and calmness in battle. Just like now, he thought that Chu Xiu had used an illusion to disappear in front of him, and that he must be hiding somewhere, preparing to sneak attack him. Who would have thought that Chu Xiu had only concealed his figure, and he had not moved a single step at all? The sudden slash took advantage of a crucial point in Xiahou Jiuxiao's connection of power to slash out, catching him off guard. Xiahou Jiuxiao roared. The power of the earth fused in front of him. The aura had already condensed into a black color, but it was not the demonic qi, but the incomparably heavy power of the earth. However, how could the power he had condensed in a hurry block Chu Xiu's attack, which was ready to be unleashed, and had even fused the Misty Slash and the Break Formula's Blade Intent together? The astral energy shattered, the armor shattered, and blood splattered everywhere. The sharp aura entered his body, causing Xiahou Jiuxiao to vomit blood on the spot. Furthermore, the armor in front of him was torn apart, and a huge blade wound appeared on his chest. Fortunately, his fleshly body cultivation was strong, and the armor he was wearing was not an ordinary item. Otherwise, he would have been cut into two by Chu Xiu's blade long ago. However, out of Chu Xiu's expectations, Xiahou Jiuxiao did not continue to fight with his life on the line. Instead, he turned around and fled. His escape was extremely agile, causing Chu Xiu to be stunned for a moment. The alliance leader of the Heaven Alliance was also an expert of the Heaven and Earth Profound Realm. Xiahou Jiuxiao also had a rough appearance, looking very domineering, but in the end, his escape was extremely agile. Unfortunately, it was not that easy for ordinary people to escape from the hands of Chu Xiu. In the next moment, Chu Xiu formed a seal with his hand, and strands of demonic qi burst out from his body. In an instant, the heaven weeping blood rain descended, and the great compassion mantra was cast. The demon god phantom directly grabbed towards Xiahou Jiuxiao. The powerful power caused Xiahou Jiuxiao's expression to immediately change. He did not expect Chu Xiu to have such a powerful skill. Xiahou Jiuxiao gritted his teeth and unleashed a burst of blood energy. Burning his blood essence, Xiahou Jiuxiao did not choose to face the power of the great compassion mantra head-on. Instead, he drilled into the ground. Xiahou Jiuxiao's heart, Jiuxiao, Chujiao of the Jiuxiao Chun Ming Manchu Chun. But Xiu Xiu Jiuxiao, he did not, and Chu Xiu Chun, and Earth Jiuxiao Chun. Moreover, Chu Xiu could feel that the moment he entered the ground, the surrounding soil and rocks automatically moved away, allowing him to escape underground at the fastest speed, and even sealed the path above. Chu Xiu frowned slightly and said, "Earth burrowing? There's such a move?" Chu Xiu did not expect Xiahou Jiuxiao to use this move. It was the first time he saw someone use the power of the earth in this way. At the same time, he was also conflicted. Should he use the lawful embodiment of heaven and earth? He was only here to help, not for his own benefit. Therefore, he felt that it was not worth it to use the lawful embodiment of heaven and earth with all his strength. At this moment, Lu Sanjin, who had been in a state of shock with his mouth wide open, seemed to have finally woken up. He snorted coldly and threw out two small swords. With a wave of one hand, blood sprinkled on the two small swords. Instantly, the two small swords intertwined and rushed toward Xiahou Jiuxiao, who was underground. This was the first time Chu Xiu had seen Lu Sanjin make a move, and it did surprise Chu Xiu. As the Eastern region wayfarer, Lu Sanjin was also the most outstanding warrior of the younger generation in the entire Imperial Sky Pavilion. He still had some trump cards. Back then, Chu Xiu could feel that the other party's combat power was definitely not as simple as the realm that he was displaying now. On the two small swords, Chu Xiu felt an aura that belonged to a mystique. However, what Lu Sanjin used was definitely not a mystique, and mystiques could not be used at the cost of a little blood. In Chu Xiu's perception, Lu Sanjin's two small swords pierced the ground and slashed down with incomparable sharpness. Xiahou Jiuxiao felt that there was still killing intent coming from behind him, which made his expression tense up. However, before he could react, his eyes were already shrouded in blood. In the next moment, under the strangling of the two small swords, his head was directly cut off. At this moment, Chu Xiu could confirm that Lu Sanjin's move was indeed a variation of some kind of mystique. It had the strange characteristic of a mystique that could not be defended against, but the consumption was not as great as a normal mystique. Of course, Lu Sanjin had consumed quite a bit of energy as well. The moment the two small swords killed Xiahou Jiuxiao, his face turned pale. The two small swords flew up with the head. Chu Xiu smiled and said, "Congratulations, young Master Lu, for using the true fire spirit refinement realm to kill a heaven and earth profound expert." Lu Sanjin smiled bitterly and said, "Brother Chu, don't make fun of me. At most, I picked up the head." If Brother Chu hadn't forced Xiahou Jiuxiao to burn his blood essence, how could I have killed him? Chu Xiu smiled and did not say anything. Lu Sanjin's strength was also terrifying enough. A heaven and earth profound expert who was forced to a dead end was still a heaven and earth profound expert. Ordinary people could not kill him. At this moment, seeing that the people of the Heaven Alliance were about to be killed by Lu Jianghe and the others, Chu Xiu shouted, "Enough, don't just kill, leave a few alive to interrogate." Lu Jianghe curled his lips and said, "Why didn't you say so earlier?" It was not too late to say it now. At least there were still some people who had not been killed. When the situation was under control, Lin Yazi and Lin Fengwu dared to walk over to thank him. Senior Chu, thank you very much. If it wasn't for you, there would be no Nine Phoenix Sword sect from now on. Lin Fengwu no longer looked valiant and heroic. Instead, she looked at Chu Xiu with a tearful expression. Her eyes looked like they were about to melt. Mei Qinglian transmitted her voice behind Chu Xiu. She laughed and said, "It seems that cult master Chu has quite a lot of admirers in the Dalu Ocean. This woman is not inferior to your barbarian priest. Although her figure is a little lacking, she is quite fair. Black and white match?" "Stop it." Chu Xiu coughed and said to Lin Fengwu, "If you really want to thank someone, you should thank Lu Sanjin, the Eastern Region wayfarer of the Imperial Sky Pavilion. If it wasn't for him, I wouldn't have known that such a big thing had happened in Fonglin Prefecture." Of course, Lu Sanjin was not in the mood to listen to the gratitude of the father and daughter of the Lin family. He had just finished interrogating the people of the Heaven Alliance. His method was simple and brutal. He used a secret spiritual technique to break through their mental defenses, and got the answer. Chu Xiu did not expect Lu Sanjin to have such a thing. Lu Sanjin walked over with a gloomy face and said, "I knew it. It's those guys from Cold River City again." Cold River City came out to sow discord? Lu Sanjin nodded and said, "If Cold River City didn't instigate them in secret, how would they dare to openly rebel? Cold River City promised them that as long as they made a big fuss here, Cold River City would press on the Imperial Sky Pavilion, so that the Imperial Sky Pavilion would not have the time to care about them." Chu Xiu raised his eyebrows and said, "If I didn't do anything, Cold River City would have succeeded, wouldn't they?" Lu Sanjin had said before that Li Wuxiang and the others seemed to be busy with a lot of affairs, and had no time to care about Fonglin Prefecture. Now it seemed that Cold River City was up to something. Anyway, in Chu Xiu's opinion, Xiahou Jiuxiao and the others were also idiots. It seemed that they were benefiting from Cold River City, but in fact they were being used by Cold River City. For Cold River City, if the Imperial Sky Pavilion chose to ignore Fonglin Prefecture, and let Fonglin Prefecture go on like this, the Imperial Sky Pavilion would have a headache. However, if the Imperial Sky Pavilion chose to ignore Cold River City, and deal with Xiahou Jiuxiao and the others first, they would be dumbfounded. Cold River City could also take the opportunity to encroach on the Imperial Sky Pavilion. Therefore, no matter what the Imperial Sky Pavilion chose, Cold River City would benefit. The elites of the Heaven Alliance are all dead. What trouble does Fonglin Prefecture have now? Lu Sanjin added, "There's also Jiangzong. He's currently guarding the Prefecture by himself. In the entire Fonglin County, there are many rebel forces, big and small. One of them has also reached the Heaven and Earth Mystic State, and is currently fighting against Jiangzong." Chu Xiu waved his hand and said, "Fine. We can take care of them all at once." Seeing that Chu Xiu and the others were about to leave, Lin Fengwu wanted to say something but hesitated. In the end, she did not say a word. Today she finally saw Chu Xiu's strength and Chu Xiu's current status. He could kill a Heaven and Earth Mystic Illumination Realm cultivator, just like that. Lu Sanjin of the Royal Heaven Pavilion, who was even more renowned in the Eastern region, was with him. Their discussion was also about the conflict of interests in the entire Eastern region. No matter what, she could not reach Chu Xiu's realm at the moment. After Chu Xiu left, Lin Yazi looked at the Nine Phoenix Sword sect that was almost beaten to a pulp. He sighed helplessly and said, "Did I save the mountain gate? With official Chu's help, Fonglin Prefecture will soon calm down. Girl, gather the disciples again, and prepare to rebuild the mountain gate." Lin Fengwu suddenly said, "Father, you should take over the task of rebuilding the mountain gate. I need to go into seclusion." Lin Yazi suddenly thought of something and shook his head helplessly. "Useless girl, your talent is not bad in Fonglin Prefecture. However, that official Chu is peerless. He will definitely become someone like Meng Xinghe in the future. You will never be able to catch up to him." Lin Fengwu shook her head and said with a determined expression, "I know that I will never be able to catch up to Senior Chu in this lifetime. I am cultivating now not for Senior Chu but for ourselves. Staying at home and waiting for death is not a good feeling. This time, It was a coincidence that Senior Chu came and saved us. If he had come 2 hours later, there would be no 9 Phoenix Sword sect. I am going to cultivate so that next time, I can control my fate in my own hands. Lin Yazi looked at Lin Fengwu in surprise. It was as if he was understanding his daughter for the first time. Chapter 1168. On the way to the Yin Prefecture, Mei Qinglian stared at Chu Xiu and said, "I'm sure you have a secret with that girl." Chu Xiu raised his eyebrows and said, "Since when did you become so nosy? What secret?" "It's just that she was the first person I met after I came out of the Dilua Mountains. That's why we have a relationship." Lu Fengxian nodded and said, "I can attest to that. Brother Chu, the way you looked at that girl was pure and innocent. To be more precise, it was as if you were a stranger." Mei Qinglian was puzzled. "You can tell?" Lu Fengxian sighed and said, "After all, I've had the same experience." Lu Jianghe interrupted from the side. "But it was the girl who played you back then. What you did can only be called bad judgment." Lu Fengxian had always been a good-tempered person, but he was speechless at Lu Jianghe's words. Although it had been a long time, it would be a lie to say that he did not mind it. Those who were infatuated with love were often the ones who suffered the longest. Chu Xiu waved his hand and said, "All right, don't rub salt into Brother Lu's wound." Lu Sanjin, who was listening to their idle chatter, suddenly felt a little strange. Wasn't Chu Xiu cultivating in the forest? Why did it seem like he was very familiar with these people, as if they had been through many things together? But Fonglin Prefecture was in danger, and Lu Sanjin was not in the mood to think about such things. When Chu Xiu and the others arrived at the Yin Prefecture, they found that the entire Yin Prefecture was surrounded. Thousands of warriors besieged the Yinzhou Prefecture. At this time, all the formations in the Yinzhou Prefecture had been activated. However, those people did not attack. Obviously, they were waiting for the power of the formations to be exhausted. Then they would attack together. Chu Xiu raised his eyebrows and shouted, "Jiangzong, are you dead? If you're not dead yet, come out and let's do it together." Jiangzong and the surrounding Fonglin County martial artists were alerted by Chu Xiu's shout. The leader of the martial artists outside was a middle-aged man dressed in a purple brocade robe. According to the people from the Tsangtian Alliance, this person was Du Lanhai, the former leader of the Du family, the #1 family in Fonglin County. Xiahou Jiuxiao had only recently stepped into the Heaven and Earth Profound Insight realm, and he dared to resist the Imperial Sky Pavilion. However, this Du Lanhai was obviously more scheming. He might have already stepped into the Heaven and Earth Profound Insight realm a few years ago, but he had kept it a secret until now, when he found an opportunity to make a move. Xiahou Jiuxiao died too quickly, and Du Lanhai still did not know of Xiahou Jiuxiao's death. When he heard the voice, Du Lanhai thought it was the experts from the Imperial Heaven Pavilion. He didn't expect it to be East Region wayfarer Lu Sanjin, and some true fire spirit refinement realm martial artists. There wasn't a single Heaven and Earth mystic illumination realm martial artist. This made him heave a sigh of relief. At this time, a haggard Jiangzong appeared on the city wall. Originally, when he heard the voice, he thought that someone had come to help. In the end, who would have thought that when he went out with hope, it would only be Lu Sanjin and Chu Xiu? This immediately made him disappointed. Although he knew that Chu Xiu's strength was extraordinary, Fonglin County was in a mess now. Would it be useful for Chu Xiu to come with such a small group of people? Chu Xiu didn't care about Jiangzong and Du Lanhai's thoughts. When he saw them, Chu Xiu directly said to Lu Sanjin, "Do it." As soon as he finished speaking, Chu Xiu and Lu Sanjin joined forces and attacked Du Lanhai. There were more people here than in the Firmament Alliance, so Chu Xiu also dragged Lu Sanjin to join in the attack. In fact, among the people present, if Lu Fengxian were to erupt with her full strength, she would also be qualified to exchange blows with a Heaven and Earth mystic illumination realm martial artist. Just like the time when she used Peerless to directly shatter a leaf of the Adumbra flower, the pure explosive power of her physical body was something even Chu Xiu couldn't compare to. However, Lu Fengxian was on their side. Under normal circumstances, she was still inferior to a Heaven and Earth mystic illumination realm martial artist. It wouldn't be worth it if she was injured. As the East Region wayfarer, Lu Sanjin had many trump cards. It would be faster to bring him along to kill Dulanhai. Of course, at this moment, Lu Sanjin didn't know that the reason why Chu Xiu dragged him along to attack Dulanhai was purely because he couldn't bear to see his own people get injured. He thought that Chu Xiu trusted his strength, which was why he joined him to attack Dulanhai. Dulanhai didn't expect Chu Xiu and Lu Sanjin to attack the moment they arrived. They didn't even give him a chance to speak. Even if he could be considered as an experienced and astute person, he was still beaten silly. Chu Xiu's strength was strong, and Lu Sanjin's methods were even more mysterious. Other than some secret cultivation techniques of the Emperor Heaven Pavilion, the two small swords on his body controlled the power of yin and yang. Unexpectedly, they were similar to Chu Xiu's formation-breaking technique. They could ignore domains, and could even weaken a large portion of earth energy. When used for a surprise attack, it could be said to be quite a deterrent. Jiangzong, what are you still looking at? What are you waiting for? When Chu Xiu shouted, Jiangzong seemed to have reacted. He immediately ordered the cultivators in the Yin prefecture to rush out, while he followed Chu Xiu and Lu Sanjin to surround Dulanhai. In just a few moves, Dulanhai's complexion had already changed. Chu Xiu's strength foundation was even stronger than most of the Heaven and Earth Mystic Opening Realm cultivators. Although Lu Sanjin wasn't at the Heaven and Earth Mystic Opening Realm, he was slippery and his methods were very strange. He was more familiar with Jiangzong. In a normal one-on-one fight, he didn't have the confidence to kill Jiangzong, let alone now. Dulanhai was a cautious person. Seeing this scene, the first thing that came to his mind was to escape with the fastest speed. However, facing the joint attack of three people, if Dulanhai could still escape, it would be simply embarrassing. Chu Xiu directly used the power of the Great Compassion Mantra to tear apart Dulanhai's domain. And the Devil God's giant hand reached out, catching Dulanhai off guard. The two strange little swords in Lu Sanjin's hands also erupted with a powerful force, directly chopping off Dulanhai's arms, and in the end Jiangzong killed him. With Dulanhai's death, the other rebel forces in Fonglin County lost their leader and scattered in all directions. However, Chu Xiu wasn't in the mood to help Jiangzong chase after these people. When he had the time, he would deal with them himself. Jiangzong walked over with a face full of shame. This time, it's all thanks to advisor Lu and brother Chu's help. Otherwise, I would be in deep trouble. In fact, Jiangzong had the chance to escape. With his strength, if he wanted to force his way out, Dulanhai might not be able to stop him. However, Jiangzong didn't want to leave. As the prefectural governor, Fonglin County was already in a mess because of him. If he left now, how could the Emperor Sky Pavilion let him go? Although Jiangzong was an expert in the Heaven and Earth Illumination realm, with his strength he was born in the Emperor Sky Pavilion, grew up in the Emperor Sky Pavilion, and spent his entire life in the Emperor Sky Pavilion. He really couldn't bring himself to betray the Emperor Sky Pavilion at this time. Chu Xiu shook his head and said, I told you before that although the idea I gave you was effective, you have to prevent the emergence of a powerful force that you can't control when the forces in Fonglin County are fighting each other. But now not only is there one, but there are also two. It would be strange if there isn't trouble. Jiangzong's face was gloomy. You can't blame me for this. I've been keeping an eye on them. It's true that Xiahou Jiuxiao has broken through recently, but Dulanhai has long broken through, but he hid it from everyone. It's obvious that he has been plotting something. After complaining for a while, Jiangzong invited Chu Xiu and Lu Sanjin to the Anzhou prefecture, and arranged a banquet to thank them. Of course, he was most grateful to Chu Xiu. Jiangzong knew the situation in the Emperor Sky Pavilion. Lu Sanjin's arrival was useless. Even a Heaven and Earth Illumination realm expert wouldn't be able to solve the mess so easily. It was all thanks to Chu Xiu's swift and decisive actions that he had killed two profound understanding realm experts in succession. He had thoroughly killed the rebel forces in Fonglin County, causing them to tremble in fear. This was the perfect solution to all of this. After the banquet, Chu Xiu prepared to return to Kangwu County with his men. Fonglin County was still in a mess, and there was nothing to stay in. At this time Lu Sanjin said, Brother Chu, there's no hurry to return to Kangwoo County. The pavilion master said that you should go back as well. He has something to tell you. Moreover, you've made a great contribution this time. The Emperor Sky Pavilion will reward you. When he heard that there would be a reward, Chu Xiu suddenly narrowed his eyes and said, "Since it's a reward, can I enter the Emperor Sky Pavilion's Sutra Depository to take a look?" Currently, Chu Xiu was stuck at the bottleneck of the heaven and earth illumination realm. He couldn't move forward, and it was very uncomfortable. The Emperor Sky Pavilion had been passed down for 10,000 years. The Sutra Depository must have many cultivation insights left behind by their predecessors. For the current Chu Xiu, they would be very useful. Lu Sanjin hesitated for a moment before saying, "It's not a problem to enter the Sutra Depository. However, Brother Chu, your identity is a little special. After all, you're not the direct descendant of the Emperor Sky Pavilion. Therefore, you can't look at the parts of the direct descendant's inheritance in the Sutra Depository." Chu Xiu nodded and said, "No problem. I'm just looking for some martial path insights." In reality, if Chu Xiu were to look at those things for free, Chu Xiu might not even want to look at them. His current martial path was either the most powerful martial path that he had inherited from Duguwewa, or it was the martial path that had developed along with his path of slaughter and conquest until now. It had already become a complete and integrated martial path. Although he could cultivate the martial path of other sects, it would be of little value to Chu Xiu. It would not be of much use unless it was like Moriha's illusory art, which could complement Chu Xiu's current strength. After the discussion, Chu Xiu followed Lu Sanjin to the Emperor Sky Pavilion's headquarters. Initially, he wanted to let Lu Jianghe and the others go back. However, Lu Jianghe and the others insisted on going with Chu Xiu. On the surface, it was to protect Chu Xiu's safety. In reality, they just wanted to see what a top sect in the east like the Emperor Sky Pavilion was like. All of them were very curious. Chapter 1169. Compared to most of the buildings in the lower realm, the headquarters of the Imperial Sky Pavilion was indeed extremely majestic. However, Chu Xiu also reminded Lu Jianghe and the others to calm down after entering the Imperial Sky Pavilion. They should not look around like country bumpkins who had never seen the world. Otherwise, they would be seen through. After entering the headquarters of the Imperial Sky Pavilion, Lu Sanjin arranged for someone to bring Lu Jianghe and the others to look around and rest. Meanwhile, he brought Chu Xiu to meet Li Wuxiang. When Li Wuxiang saw Chu Xiu, he stood up and said with a bright smile, "I'm aware of what Chu did in Kangwoo County. He killed Yi Tianqing and forced Yi Wuhan to retreat. In the end, even that old B***starred Yi Weikong returned without accomplishing anything. Chu has really made the Imperial Sky Pavilion proud." Lu Sanjin, who was standing at the side, revealed a surprised expression. He did not know what Li Wuxiang meant by that. Not long ago, Li Wuxiang was still angry at Chu Xiu for not knowing what was good for him and getting into big trouble. Chu Xiu said calmly, "Pavilion Master, you're being too polite. This is what I should do." Li Wuxiang laughed and said, "However, among all the prefectural governors in the Imperial Sky Pavilion, you Chu have done the best. You're not like Jiangzong. When he got into trouble, he still had to rely on Chu to save him. By the way, is your master still in Kangwoo County?" Chu Xiu frowned slightly and shook his head. "He's not here anymore. Brother Lu told me that Yi Weikong of Cold River City is narrow-minded and might harm me. That's why I asked my master to come over and help me block him. Now that the trouble has been resolved, my master has naturally left." Li Wuxiang waved his hand and said, "The trouble has been resolved? The trouble is far from being resolved. You don't know that old B***starred Yi Weikong. When he was young, he was extremely ruthless and vengeful. You killed a junior of the Yi clan that he valued the most and forced him to retreat in front of everyone. You've humiliated him. He won't let you off just like that. There was only one way to solve the problem, and that was to destroy Cold River City. Chu, since your master has already made a move, why not make a second move? Our Imperial Heaven Pavilion is willing to invite your master to be our foreign minister. Both sides will join forces and break into Cold River City. At that time, your master will have the first pick of all the treasures in Cold River City. When Li Wuxiang said these words, Chu Xiu finally understood what he meant. Li Wuxiang actually had such an idea, causing Chu Xiu to sneer. What the Imperial Sky Pavilion lacked the most right now was high-end combat power. The old pavilion master was already old, and Li Wuxiang alone was no match for Yi Weikong. Hence, they could only think of a way from the outside world. This way was to drag Chu Xiu's master down with them. It was a pity that Chu Xiu didn't have a master. Even if he did Li Wuxiang really think of himself as a 3-year-old child? Joining forces with the Imperial Sky Pavilion would mean taking a huge risk and breaking the rules of the line of Guzun. In the end, he would only be able to obtain some dispensable resources while the Imperial Sky Pavilion would gain all the benefits. Who would be willing to make such a losing deal? Even Lu Sanjin, who was standing at the side, felt that something was wrong. It was obvious that Li Wuxiang was using Chu Xiu. However, just as he was about to say something, Li Wuxiang glared at him and swallowed his words. Chu Xiu said indifferently, "I'll have to disappoint you, Pavilion Master. It's a rule that the line of Guzun doesn't interfere in the disputes of the Jianghu. Once my master interferes, he will break the rule and will be boycotted by the other Guzun. This time he only intervened because I'm in danger, so he made an exception. He can't interfere at any other time." Li Wuxiang frowned and said, "You have to think this through. Your danger hasn't been resolved, and Yi Weikong is still eyeing you like a tiger watching its prey. Moreover, the Imperial Sky Pavilion doesn't have the manpower to help you. Otherwise, we would have sent people to resolve the trouble in Fenglin County." This time, Lu Sanjin really couldn't take it anymore. He felt that Li Wuxiang was going overboard. No matter what, he was the pavilion master of the Imperial Sky Pavilion. Now that the Imperial Sky Pavilion couldn't even protect him, this was clearly a humiliation. Why did it become a way for Li Wuxiang to threaten his own people? Chu Xiu said expressionlessly, "Since the Imperial Sky Pavilion can't protect me, and I can't afford to offend Yi Weikong, it's best that I leave. After all, I'm the successor of a Guzun. At most, I'll end my experience in the Jianghu early and return to the deep mountains and forests with my master to continue cultivating. Do you think Yi Weikong will chase me so far to cause trouble for me?" Li Wuxiang's expression darkened when he heard Chu Xiu's shameless words. Indeed, Chu Xiu was the most fearless one. After all, he had a backer behind him. He could come and go as he pleased. He didn't have to fight to the death with the Imperial Sky Pavilion in Cold River City. When Chu Xiu saw that Li Wuxiang was silent for a long time, he said indifferently, "If there's nothing else, Pavilion Master, I'll take my leave." "Let's go." Li Wuxiang waved his hand casually and didn't say anything else. However, when Chu Xiu walked out of the door, he vaguely heard the sound of something being smashed in the room. After he walked out, Lu Sanjin said to Chu Xiu with an apologetic expression, "Brother Chu, please forgive me. I didn't expect the Pavilion Master to call you here to say this. Recently, there's a lot of trouble in the Imperial Sky Pavilion. There's also the external pressure from Cold River City. With so many things weighing on the Pavilion Master, it's inevitable that he'll feel some pressure and do something irrational." When it came to this, even Lu Sanjin felt a little embarrassed. It was obvious that Li Wuxiang was scheming to make use of Chu Xiu. It was simply a trap. It wasn't as simple as being irrational. Chu Xiu waved his hand casually and said, "This matter has nothing to do with you, Brother Lu. But now that I've offended the Pavilion Master, can I still use the Imperial Sky Pavilion's Sutra Depository?" Lu Sanjin heaved a sigh of relief and said, "Of course you can use it. The Pavilion Master doesn't have the final say in the Imperial Sky Pavilion. Brother Chu, please wait for a while. I'll arrange for you to enter the Sutra Depository." Lu Sanjin was relieved when he saw that Chu Xiu wasn't too angry. However, he didn't know that Chu Xiu was indeed not angry because there was no need for him to be angry. To Chu Xiu, he didn't have the slightest bit of loyalty to the Emperor Sky Pavilion. The things he did in the southern barbaric land were more like establishing himself as a king. Both sides were using and scheming against each other. Since that was the case, what else did he have to be angry about? At this time, Zheng Qiushui appeared out of nowhere and said with a sneer, "I heard that you seem to have an affair with Li Wuxiang? This is very normal. Li Wuxiang, this person on the surface, looks like he's supremely righteous and broad-minded, but in reality, he only has himself in his eyes, only power and interests. He's a selfish person. When he needs you, everything is fine. But when you can't satisfy his interests or block his way, he won't hesitate to fall out with you. The various conflicts and grudges between Li Wuxiang and Zhong Qiushui, Chu Xiu had long known about it. Looking at it now, the various grudges between these two people weren't considered light. This already started to openly attack him. Chu Xiu didn't want to get involved in this kind of messy matter for the time being. He just said coolly, "Is the deputy pavilion master here to recruit me?" Zhong Qiushui laughed lightly and said, "Recruit? Are you willing to be recruited by me? It's too early to say these now. Just watch, the longer you follow Li Wuxiang, the clearer you'll be able to see what kind of person he is." After saying that, Zhong Qiushui turned and left right away. Chu Xiu raised his brows slightly. Zhong Qiushui seemed to have a hidden meaning in his words. It seemed like he was also hiding quite a lot of secrets. At this time, Lu Sanjin also returned. He held a token and led Chu Xiu straight through the obstruction of several formations. In the end, they actually arrived before the entrance of a space. After entering, it was a blessed land with birdsong and fragrant flowers. The richness of the heaven and earth essence energy was even several times that of the outside world. The Imperial Sky Pavilion's Sutra Depository was located here. As long as the entire Imperial Sky Pavilion wasn't captured, this place could be said to be very safe. Lu Sanjin pointed to one of the buildings and said, "That's where our Imperial Sky Pavilion's Sutra Depository is located. The first, second, and third floors can be entered with a token. The fourth, fifth, and sixth floors are all cultivation methods that only our Imperial Sky Pavilion's direct descendants can view and learn. The token's clearance isn't enough, so it can't be viewed. Brother Chu, you can stay here as long as you want. As long as you have the token, you can walk out of the formations at any time." Chu Xiu nodded and said, "Very well. I'll have to trouble Brother Lu to help me take care of the people I brought with me." Lu Sanjin patted his chest and said, "Don't worry, leave them to me." Chu Xiu stepped into the Imperial Sky Pavilion's Sutra Depository. From the outside, the place only appeared to be a small 6-story building. Unexpectedly, there was a world inside. The space was incomparably huge. Each floor was like a palace hall. The Imperial Sky Pavilion had a history of 10,000 years in the Daluotian continent. Back in the lower realms, it had existed for an unknown number of years. Thus, the amount of books it had could be said to be astonishing. The books were all placed in different categories. Chu Xiu only went to look at the books about the breakthroughs of martial immortals in the past, as well as the notes regarding martial cultivation. The stones from other mountains could be used to study jade. Although Chu Xiu would not study the cultivation notes step by step, some of the comprehensions contained within them were able to provide Chu Xiu with quite a bit of experience. Chu Xiu used roughly a week's time to finish looking through all of the books. The second and third floors also contained a lot of cultivation techniques. However, none of them belonged to the Imperial Sky Pavilion. Some were collected by the Imperial Sky Pavilion, while others were spoils of war. Out of curiosity, Chu Xiu went to the second and third floors to take a look at the books. However, at that moment, he suddenly had a strange feeling. There was something that was attracting him. Chu Xiu looked in that direction. It was not a book. Instead, it was a piece of metal. Perhaps it was a piece of armor. It was faintly emitting a powerful and sharp aura. However, it was suppressed by the formation within the Sutra Depository. Chu Xiu pulled the piece of metal out from a pile of books. Immediately, the extreme sharpness of the piece of metal surged into Chu Xiu's body. The surface of the piece of metal even shone with a blinding golden light. Chu Xiu looked at the densely packed words on the piece of metal. However, he was only attracted by the first line of words. 7 words were written on it. Heaven swallowing, earth destroying, 7 great limits. You're tuning into the Echoes of the Heart YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.